Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Goober Brothers Entertainment. Today is April 10th, 2020. This is our Quaranstream Quaranstream. We should call it Quaranstream. How about that?
Yeah, that would be
Quarantine
good.
Quaranstream 2.
Yeah, that's a solid name, Quaranstream.
It's very solid. I think we should go with that. How about that?
That
I think
sounds good.
I think after this episode I'll go back and I'll switch the name out.
Yeah, definitely.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I got my brother Thomas from So What Happens Next. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, how's it going? Hey, everybody.
It's going, man. It's another day indoors and need to get out and get some sun, man.
Yeah, I think there's some sun up here in Chicago, but I haven't been able to go out yet, so I don't
Does
know.
it exist there?
It does every now and then, but man, is it a huge issue when it does. Like, just given the current situation, I mean, there's a bunch of memes floating around of the mayor getting mad because, was it like 2 weeks ago now, maybe? There was one weekend, it was beautiful. I mean, it was gorgeous outside, but everybody's under quarantine, right? So you can't go to bars and restaurants and shit. However, a bunch of people went. So like the whole lakefront in the city is a park, more or less. And so everybody just went straight to the quote unquote beach. I can't call it a beach. It's not a beach. It's a lake. With a bunch of sand that they dumped on the edge of the shore. But anyway, everybody goes to the park, and like the city freaked out because they're like, you guys can't, like, so many people went, and it's like defeating the purpose of social distancing because everyone's just packed shoulder to shoulder at the beach now. And so they got mad the very next day, or at least that night. They were like, all right, everybody, parks are closed. All parks and like public kind of rec areas are closed now. Basically, like, y'all didn't get the fucking message the first time, so figure it out. You're not allowed to do it anymore. And it resulted in like a meme because there was like an angry picture of the mayor standing in front of a police line, but it was clearly like green screened. So they were able to just take her. Like, they had her in front of like a green screened like, I don't know, picture of the park or something like that. So somebody, I guess, had that picture, and it just became her popping up in different places.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, it was pretty funny. But yeah, so that was nice. But yeah, now the parks are closed, so it's kind of just like shit.
Florida, they don't really know what they want to do. They want to close things down, but they also don't.
Yeah, Florida's making me mad. I'm not gonna lie.
Florida is like, hey, let's close down. That's the best decision. Well, no, we economy and tourism, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, everything's closed, so you could probably pull the plug there and close.
I mean, didn't Disney World close? Like, didn't the theme parks close? I know they did in California.
Yeah, Universal Studios and everything like that from them, they're closed up until the end of May.
Well, then what? I mean, that's
Exactly.
like 90% of your tourism, right? Like, if I recall, everybody travels down there, or they're going to like the beach. And I mean,
yeah. Well, the Kennedy Space Center visitor complex is closed.
yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
Somebody I know who works there was telling me that, and I was like, oh, that's crazy. And yet that makes sense. Like, those things really should be closed. I mean, shoot. I remember going to Disney World back like years ago and still thinking this isn't the most sanitary experience ever. I mean, if anything, you're just packed in with really sweaty, dirty people. Like, everybody's gross, including you. So it's like, what? I don't know. I could see people getting sick.
Yeah, no, I mean, all these people coming in from spring break and they're running around all over the place. And
Oh my God.
Bro, sit home.
That made me so mad. I hate it because it makes me sound too much like a freaking boomer, but it's just like, I was like, oh, these Gen Z kids can't get their spring break, so they're doing it anyway. And I'm like, God damn it.
Everyone's like blaming millennials. I'm like, you realize we're the ones that are like telling people to stay home, right?
Yeah, but it's like, well, exactly. And that's the thing that's bothering, I guess on that front, that's what's bothering me.
The Gen Z kids, yeah.
Yeah, it's all the kids. And I'm like, yo, millennials are like in their 20s or 30s now, even.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm sorry. I learned my lesson in grad school. I remember going out one night and we went hard, and I was like, I woke up the next morning and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm too old for this. I can't do this crap like I could when I was like 21, 22. I'm not
Well,
doing it
you're
now.
what? You're 26, right?
Yeah.
And
So
I'm
I'm not
25.
super old. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I'm ancient or something, but
Yeah, for all y'all
good
listening.
Lord, I'm past that point.
Yeah, for all y'all listening, we're not like old. We're we're in our
Yeah.
mid 20s, so
Yeah. But I mean, like, that was enough for me. Like, I just remember waking, I'm done. You know what? And like, I'll go out and have a good time, but I know when to stop and I know what I don't want to feel like the next morning. Unlike when
exactly.
I was, 22 and just did it.
Yeah, just throwing them back and being like,
Yeah.
"Hey, so what happens next?"
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, no, that whole thing really bothers me because, and it's like the issue I think is just a lot of these kids who are in college and stuff are just kind of going like, well, I'm not sick. I don't have any symptoms or nothing. Like, screw this, and I'm king of the world. So they go out and they go do whatever they want and infect a bunch of elderly people that are going to die because some stupid kid just could not go get wasted on a dirty beach somewhere.
It's just responsibility and maturity, and you know,
Yeah, no,
just I mean,
yeah,
I'll give them this. We've never had this happen before,
for sure.
but the parents need to also get their shit together. Go grab their kid, little Johnny, by the ear,
Mm.
and drag him off the beach.
Oh, I mean, it's one of those things, and you run into like obviously the issue of well, my kid's now 20. Is it, and they're living on their own? Is it my responsibility to go screw with it? And I bet you there's a lot of parents who are like,
Yeah.
no, it's not. I'm not going to do this. Screw that. Which I guess you could argue, like, maybe that's their prerogative. They could do that. I don't know. I'm not a parent, so I don't know how
Mom,
exactly they feel.
Mom, Dad, I gotta go to the beach and butt chug with my buddies.
Yeah.
Oh, we gotta go. It's like, okay.
Well, okay, but frankly, like any kid who's telling their parents, "Hey, I got to go to the beach and I got to go butt chug with my buddies," probably shouldn't be doing a lot of things like driving or procreating or.
All right, listen, Will. We're cutting you off. What? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nah. Those butt chugging videos you keep sending to Aunt Kathy. Not cool.
Look, you're posting them on YouTube. You showed them to us at Thanksgiving, for Christ's sake.
My friend
Ruin the
Margaret
meal.
shared it on Facebook. I didn't even know it was you.
She thought it was another Minions video. Or whatever thing they're doing, essential oils or some crap like that. I don't fucking know.
She thought it was one of those memes, and I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah. What's the memes, whatever. Thought it was all about you, so we posted it, and it just was you butt chugging. But yeah, so if you're younger, don't be dumb. You can get people sick, so just because you want to go do it, don't go do it.
Oh, dude, I've
Um,
been wanting to go to the beach so
uh,
bad.
I mean, I've
Especially
been
when you
wanting to do
see these.
lots of stuff, but it's
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna put other people at risk, and it's also like, stuff's closed. Like up here in Illinois, everything's closed. Like you couldn't do stuff if you wanted to. Because I see a lot of people like in other states are like, oh, I'm gonna go hiking and stuff, and it's like, yeah, you think that's isolating, except for the fact that you have to change your location from point A to point B, and then anybody you interact with along that route wouldn't have been, subjected to anything that you may be carrying
Ye-
while, if you were
Yeah.
at home. So it's just like
Yeah.
you think that because you're going to an isolated environment that you're better off. And like, yeah, sure, if you could teleport from point A to point B, sure, but you can't. So like anything in between is kind of like, ah, crap.
You mean you're not Hayden Christensen in that one movie, Jump?
Oh God, that movie's terrible.
That movie had a really cool premise, and they just didn't execute it.
Well, apparently it was a book. I didn't read
Really?
it. I think I want to say I listened to like some podcast once or something that mentioned it was a book, and it was like an okay book, and apparently it was also like a trilogy of novels or something. Like one of the reasons I guess that this book or that movie just kind of stops making sense is because there were supposed to be like three movies, and they stitched them together or some shit when they figured out they weren't getting a sequel.
Really? That's weird.
That's
I
definitely
hate
weird.
I hate when people do that. Instead of taking their time with it, they're just like, "We're gonna do a one shot and fucking that's it." And we're like, "What?"
I mean, just do the first book. 9 times out of 10, these things when they're like Harry Potter 1, right? Like that kind of wraps itself up neatly. Like you don't
Well,
like you could
well,
have
that's the
not
beauty of
made
it.
them.
That's the beauty of it. You can watch it on its own, and then it's like, all right, that was a good movie. Cool.
Yeah, you're done. Like if Harry Potter wasn't successful, it would have been fine as like the one-off movie.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have read the books and you'd been like, "But there's so much more." But it's kind of like, well, yeah, but as a movie, as far as a movie goes, like it wraps itself up nicely and it's you know it's
For
over.
for the most part, all of them are like that. Except I would say, except for
Well, the part one, part twos, the last two for sure.
yeah, you have to watch them. Except for maybe I don't know,
I think the end, like
five.
from like four onwards, they start being like, yeah, we are
Dark.
going to do a sequel because
Well,
it's you can't not.
number three got dark, and
Number
then
three is good. I
and
used
then when
to
you get to
not like
four, and
it.
you're like, then you get to four, and you're like, oh shit.
No, it definitely takes a those definitely take a turn. I mean, I used to not like three very much because I when I was a kid I really liked the first two, and now like as an adult, if I rewatch them, three is by far the best one. Like as a movie, it's done really well, it's shot really well, and then like as far as just the whole within the universe, it builds on everything a lot. I think it handles time travel pretty okay, which is kind of interesting. But that's time travel is always one of those scary like are you gonna fuck this up things?
Yeah, just like we mentioned last episode,
Yeah, it
it
cheapens
cheapens
stuff,
stuff. Yeah,
and I mean, it can get you can do it right and it works okay, or you can like I've actually the past couple of days I've been rewatching the Back to the Future movies, and I've noticed that they do a lot in those movies to make sure that like nothing is skipped and there's no like stupid things. Though I got a couple complaints just
and oh, ooh, device is not connected. Ooh, yeah, Thomas is having some connection issues. That's okay though. But yeah, time travel really does like. Oh,
I'm back.
there you are.
I
I
bumped.
was like, oh well,
Yeah.
this is gonna take a
No,
while.
no. I just bumped the mic and it like unplugged it, which subsequently muted it. So heads up if you're ever using this, if you unplug your stuff, it automatically mutes you. So make sure you click unmute.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell just happened? I thought you were trying to show me something, but yeah, I've been rewatching Back to the Future, and aside from the fact that I think it's so stupid that Marty McFly orders what ends up kind of being a diet Pepsi at the 1950s diner because it's just a stupid thing to do.
It
Um,
is.
well, because I looked it up, right? Like Pepsi Free came out in 1983.
Yeah.
Like Marty McFly's 17 years old. You're telling me this kid doesn't remember when this shit came out, goes back to 1955 and thinks, "Oh yeah, I'll order one of those." Like, no, man, you get two choices. You got Pepsi or Coke. And I don't even know if Pepsi's a thing. But aside from that,
When
like
did
that's a
Pepsi
movie.
come out?
I think it came out in the 50s, maybe earlier. But I know that in those movies they go out of their way to like really make sure that they cover their bases as far as like the time travel thing goes. Um oh, I'm sorry. Pepsi came out in 1893. Um
Yeah, it came out as it was called Brad's Drink,
Brad's drink. Yeah, okay.
and
Thanks
then
Wikipedia.
changed to Pepsi in 1898, and then in 1961 it was like just
Just
Pepsi.
Pepsi. Okay, so it's still like they would have still called it like Pepsi Cola. Well, they probably were calling it Pepsi at the time. That's why they shortened it officially or something. It's like Coke. Everybody it's Coca-Cola, but everybody calls it Coke.
So
But
let's
yeah.
see. Diet Pepsi first test marketed in 1963.
Yeah, see, it's still after 1955.
Yeah,
So
introduced 1964, 55 years ago. Okay,
that's a
that's
long time
wicked.
ago. Yeah. But yeah, that's my one, I think, like time travel-y complaint is that Marty McFly is just kind of dumb.
Don't they
And like
leave? Don't they leave one of the cars in a cave?
yeah, I was actually just watching that one before we got started. Was they leave a car in the cave and they pick it up like 100 years later or something like that, or not 100 years later, but close to it.
That's so fucking funny. But
But it's smart.
the fact that nobody found it though, it's like
Well, because
really,
he boarded it up. Like he boarded up in an old mine, and a lot of these mines, even today, they haven't been touched in like 100 years because they're not safe.
Oh,
It's postered everywhere like, hey, if you go in here, you might never come out because this place is like subject to cave-ins. And so like Doc Brown puts it in there and he's like, no one's gonna touch it because I know in 1955 it's all boarded up, so I'll leave it, which
huh.
is smart. And like that
That is smart. Okay.
overall, that's smart time travel writing, right? Is you have kind of you give your rules, here they are, and then you say, well, you can't do this or that because you affect the later points in the movie and in time. Whereas like my problem with Harry Potter is you get dangerously like I don't know. It's just kind of like, well, why hasn't Hermione run into herself going to the bathroom or something? You know? Like if she's using this thing to jump back and forth in to go to classes that are going at the same time, one, that doesn't seem fair to me because there's only one of these gizmos and she's the only student who gets to take extra classes. Like, screw that noise. That's not fair. Like, why don't the other students get it? Why is she the only one that gets it?
It's all that.
Um,
It's all that privilege, bro.
oh yeah, it's gotta be. But I mean, like, I don't know from what
From
besides like
Dumbledore.
plot armor.
She's the freaking like smartest character.
It's also like, is she that smart to the point where she's at the top of her class in Hogwarts and like she deserves this kind of stuff, and everyone else is just that much beneath her? And Ron and Harry lucked out that their best friend is like a fucking genius.
I think it's the fact that she's friends with Harry and Ron, and Dumbledore's like, all right, they need all the help they can get.
Oh,
Here.
see, and this is my problem with
I don't
I
think
don't mean
Ron's
to
going to be
like
taking extra classes. Ron's going to be stuffing his fat face at the
Ron's
fucking
gonna be repeating
cafeteria.
classes. He's gonna have to like repeat shit over and over. I just, yeah. As I love Harry Potter, like it's very nostalgic for me, but it's really hard to suspend some disbelief when I watch it like today because there's so much shit that just doesn't make sense to me. But just because it wasn't designed to do this, like when it comes down to like the Fantastic Beasts movies, I'm just sort of like, yeah, I mean, you're trying to build a world that was centered around a school in for like 10 years or something like that. Like you don't have a world to go into, you just kind of have these little teased bits of like, this is how like the government of England works, or this is how I guess in those movies the government of America in 1930 whatever. It's not very fleshed out, and you're just kind of like poking holes and saying this is where this is and just making it up as you go. And it affects other things. Like for instance, if you think about it, isn't Voldemort just kind of like a domestic terrorist? I mean, nobody else seems to be really concerned with this guy. He's not like bent on world domination. He's just
Well, maybe that might be his plan later on after he takes over Hogwarts and
right, but that's my
gets in
problem
charge
with
of
it.
the British wizarding world. He might
Right.
go over to England or in America. You never know.
And see, that's where I'm like today I could totally see it working that way, but like back then I'm kind of just like I feel like if Britain was very like, oh man, we got this guy and he is killing people and he's like amassing an army. Like we are basically at the brink of a civil war on the wizarding end of things.
Yeah.
Hey, other countries who have established like, governments in and of themselves,
Well,
can you
he was
help us
wanting to
out?
take. Well, he was wanting to take over the Muggle world too because he hates Muggles.
Right. And they also, I
So
thought
it's also
they,
them trying to prevent like a World War II scenario where he just starts taking over Europe and same
right. So
thing
like
that Grindelwald wanted to do.
what is everyone else doing? Like that's my problem. Is like you have other countries. You clearly have the like Muggle government, which I thought in some book or something they allude that like the higher up people, like the prime minister and shit, they know about the Muggle thing because they have to work with each other or something like that. But in any case, it's like you have other governments like in America, right? You have American wizards. Why can't before Voldemort, like, after everyone's like, oh, Voldemort's back and this is a problem. Like, why didn't the UK Ministry of Magic go, hey, American Magical Congress or whatever, we could use some help. and then the Americans sent some help, and just kind of a bunch of countries like we already know what appeasement does. Like you said, in World War II, it was a thing. So like, why don't we just kind of nip this in the bud by book 4 and just like eliminate the problem? Because he's just a dude, and his whole goal is to take over a school. Who cares? Like, it's a school. But it's still a good book. I mean, it's still entertaining. I don't mean to like shit all over Harry Potter. It's just like when you start thinking about it, it's a kid's book, and it's what it's for, and
Yeah.
it's like,
I
oh
think once
man, this
you
is
once
rough.
you yeah, when you read out when you see the like movies and stuff and you get to actually see the scale of what's happening, I think it kind of lines up a little bit easier. And I think what you're mentioning about like the British government, like why don't they intervene? Well, it's like,
Right.
well, I'm sure there's a wizard in some sort of, somewhere in the British like, you know,
Yeah.
government or whatever. But I think I think it's similar to like World War II
Yeah.
where so a lot of these countries weren't like intervening
Yeah.
like when Hitler was rising. Same thing with like Grindelwald. Like America's like struggling with Grindelwald, but
Right.
you don't see England really doing anything
Well,
except
you see
for
England like saying you're
Dumbledore and
gonna, yeah.
a couple people. But I think she's gonna. I mean, J.K. Rowling's gonna go more in depth into it because you see how much of like shitheads that America is.
Well, have you heard about the
Like,
Fantastic Beasts movies? They're supposed to go all the way to World War II, and like time wise, they just finished World War One. That's like 30 years of
yeah,
time to cover in however many movies. Like, that's a lot of movies.
they're
And
supposed to do six, I think.
that's a lot, man. Like, I don't
I
know
think
if I
it's
like these
bullshit.
movies that much.
I love them. I think they're awesome. I think it's before we get into our first topic,
Yeah.
we've definitely gone like
We went into Harry Potter way more than we thought we
I didn't even expect to
I
talk
didn't
about
think
Harry
about
Potter.
it at all. Yeah, I don't even know how we got here anymore.
Who knows? Who knows? This is what happens when you're talking with freaking nerds. It's
Yeah.
it's you're kind of all over the place. This is what
Discussing the politics of Harry Potter.
this is what happens when you go to a comic book store, essentially.
Oh, yeah, basically.
But no, like it is shows in the first Fantastic Beast movie, like the American Wizarding like council or whatever. They're a bunch of assholes.
Oh, for
So
sure.
you can tell there's no way they would have helped out with England's like Voldemort crisis.
Not a chance.
No, I mean they have no reason to be involved, and they're just like I don't want to mess with it. But if Voldemort actually took over Hogwarts and beat Harry, there would be something happening. But
Yeah, I think they maybe. I mean, to give it the benefit of the doubt, I think people were like leaning on the whole prophecy thing. Like, Harry Potter is supposed to kill Voldemort, so like let it happen. Harry will fix it. And it's just like, when you think about it, that makes no sense at all. Because it's just like, you want this kid who's like barely trained in magic, who found out magic was real less than 10 years ago, to stop the most powerful dark wizard ever to be alive. Okay, that's fine. Um,
Ray figured out that how to be a Jedi Master in the first movie, and just found out the
um,
Force was a couple hours prior. So anything's possible, Thomas.
I think as much as I would love, like, see, I could see the going into Star Wars, I guess I could see the Rey thing being okay since she's like isolated. You kind of get like an Obi-Wan hermit thing, have like the Force be talking to her the whole time she's living in that AT-AT, and just like she doesn't understand it. She just doesn't feel alone.
But she don't know dick. And then they're like, "Oh, she's the best." It's like, no,
Yeah, see that, but then but
no.
bro, she's related to Palpatine, so I mean,
Oh
inherently
yeah.
Force ability. So
Palpatine wins essentially.
yeah, I don't, I
Palpatine wins.
yeah.
Palpatine's. I mean,
I think that right there is probably the one thing I hate the most in that whole trilogy, is just that she's Palpatine's granddaughter, and the hoops that we jump through to make that happen.
and all the Skywalkers are gone.
Yeah, I just don't.
So Palpatine won.
It just seems like a cop out. Like, it just seems like, oh, we're gonna call her Skywalker at the end of the movie, and it's like, well, okay, like, I don't know, maybe if you there are ways to make that work. Like, I can appreciate what they were trying to do with the way it was written. Like, you could really make it so that Leia and Luke and Han were solid, like, parental figures to her, but we don't explore that enough because we want to make this spectacle movie similar to like Marvel and shit, where I think in the Marvel movies, Iron Man 3 is maybe the only one where we deal with a lot of emotional issue. Maybe I don't know. I don't quote me on that. I'm sure a lot of people have opinions on them, but
Iron
you
Man
know,
3 is very,
like
very,
yeah,
very.
because we stopped the movie dead for him to just kind of hang out with the kid.
The director's a piece of shit. I can't stand that director.
Who's the director of Iron Man 3?
Shane Black.
What else has he done?
That shitty Predator movie that just came out.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
It
I've
is
not heard
god
anything great
awful.
about it. Eek.
I personally I don't even want to watch it because of how bad it is. Like go if you watch that review I sent you on The Rise of Skywalker,
Yeah,
Mauler, he
yeah.
did he did a Unbridled Rage review of that movie.
Mm.
It's a lot shorter. It's not 3 hours. It's like 49, 50 minutes. But he goes through the whole movie and he rips it apart and he's like, this movie is fucking stupid. And like
No.
he explains what happens in the movie and he quotes it and you're like, how is this made? Like I mean, it is very mind-boggling in how that movie actually got made. It's bad. It
Well,
is not
I will say this guy actually was in the original Predator. I'm just looking him up right
yeah,
now, but
he
yeah,
was,
kind of crazy. Yeah.
but if you see the movie he made and you're just like, were you sober during the filming of that movie? It's bad. Take my
Yeah.
word for it. But watch the review of it on Mahler's channel. That is a funny ass review. I watch it every now and then just because of how entertaining it is.
Dope.
Um, all right, so before we go into any other
Yes.
tangents of different franchise and dumb shit they're doing, and before we get talking about Harry Potter, because I'll talk about Harry Potter all day. So
Yeah. No, I always Harry Potter's a subject I forget that I know things about and that I was really into as a kid, and then I go, oh yeah, like this is something that is still a thing and relevant information as far as pop culture is concerned.
yeah, well, Johnny Depp's in the clear, so hopefully they can get
Dude, the last thing I'll say about that, Colin Farrell should have been the bad guy the whole time. I'm upset that Johnny Depp. I mean, like he does a great job, but I really liked in that first movie when he was like disguised as Colin Farrell through the beginning.
it was cool.
I was like, he's doing such a good job. Like he's doing that angle of like, I'm kind of not a good guy, and then oh yeah, by the way, I'm super evil, and then that movie ends where he just turns into Johnny Depp and he's like, ooga booga booga, I'm Grindelwald. And then
Ooga
like,
booga.
and I mean, like, it's great. Like, I understand the reasoning why. Like, I've heard all this story. Like Depp was doing a different movie at the time. I think it was like Pirates or Five or something like that. And like, he couldn't do it, but he really wanted to do it. So they found a way to make it work. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, he does a good job in two, but
Smart though.
yeah, it's smart, but it was like it also again it kind of seemed like a cop out because I really liked Colin Farrell in that movie because I was like he's doing an awesome job.
I
I
thought it was
thought it
cool. It was like he killed Colin Farrell's character and then just made some polyjuice potion.
yeah, and it was
I
like
think that's
oh
cool.
by the way I'm not him, and I'm like ah damn it, like and at the time I guess I was just like yeah I'm Johnny Depped out a little bit here like I can take a break from him for a little while. But you know, now I mean he did really good in that second one, so I'm cool with it now. Like it doesn't bother
Yeah,
me as much. But I will say that I kind of wouldn't have mind seeing what would happen if Colin Farrell was the bad guy the whole time.
that would be cool. Or if like he's still alive.
Yeah, where is that dude? I mean, he had to turn into him from somebody. I assume
Maybe
he killed.
I'm assuming he killed him because he just murders whoever he wants.
Right, like pretty shame, like that baby.
He's got some dude. He's got some fucking swag in that movie.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he's like evil Jack Sparrow with magic, but can always save the Harry Potter talk for another
With
episode.
cooler hair. Yeah.
Yeah, with definitely cooler hair.
All right. Can you guys hear that? Someone's deciding to do yard work.
At 10 a.m. on a Friday.
Can you guys hear that? Can you hear that, Thomas?
Oh yeah, I can hear it. I can hear it.
Oh my god.
It's not that big a deal though. I mean, I think the last time I was on here, I had dogs barking in the background, man. So
Do you hear it now?
nah, I can't hear it.
You can't hear it now?
If it's dead silent, sure, but where we're talking, nah, I don't notice it.
Okay. Can you hear it more now or now?
Oh, I hear it way less now. Whatever you did,
Okay.
that fixed it up good.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into our first topic after our 30-minute tirade on whatever. Tirade, not tyrant. So, Ash versus Evil Dead. So, we were talking earlier this week about, like what should we discuss about during this show? Like,
Mhm.
what do you want to talk about? We had pretty much the layout made. So I figured, hey, Thomas, you come up with a topic. Well, Thomas, you just got into this like
Yeah.
franchise, right?
Yeah. So, my for our show, so what happens next? Coming up in May, we're doing kind of like a mayhem sort of type thing, and we're just doing a bunch of horror movies for the month of May. And we decided to marathon uh the Evil Dead movies because I've never seen them. I'd only kind of saw the third one a long time. Like I think I actually saw it maybe with you, dude. Like years ago, it was on at a friend's house, and like we just weren't. We were all doing something else, but I remember it being on.
Probably.
But that's the only one I ever saw, and I didn't really pay attention. I didn't know what was going on. But these are movies. It's like everybody who's into horror movies are like, you should watch these, and I never got around to it. And I recently started getting really into horror movies, so we decided, hey, screw it, let's marathon them. So we marathoned 1 through 3, and I mean, I instantaneously like in love with these movies. They easily shot up to some of my favorite ones. But I've also been watching. I'm on like the fifth episode of season 2 of Ash versus Evil Dead now because I was like, the minute I was done, I'm like, there's a TV show. Like I could just keep getting more of this
Mm-hmm.
like nonsensical comedy horror stuff. Like totally. But
Well,
yeah, so
unfortunately, they
yeah.
canceled it. So I mean,
Yeah, I know that has me kind of sad, but I mean it's pretty quality. Like I like it. It is. I could see why you'd cancel a show like that, just because I could see how like a large portion of people might not be into it. Um, it is kind of like if you don't like Evil Dead, then you're not gonna like it because it's just that goofy, gory, you know, somewhat misogynistic humor. At
it's
some
just
points.
it's just hilarious humor that normally you wouldn't be able to get away with. Just, I mean, it's humor, it's comedy, it's
Well, it's
people.
interesting, right? Because they play, I guess on that note, they play it in such a way that it's like, yeah, they know it's self-aware. That's what I'm looking for. It's
Yeah.
self-aware. They make a point to be that way, and they're like, yeah, this isn't a good thing, and it shouldn't be funny, but it's funny in light of itself. And I mean, I think as long as you're not looking at it going, yeah, that's how people should be. It's like, okay, cool. Like,
Well,
don't look
well,
at it that way. That's bad.
comedy is self-aware, and you watch a movie that's a
Hmm.
comedy, and say the character is retarded and they're just stupid. Yeah, the other characters are going to see that. Like, it's very, very obvious. You watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia,
Mm.
and the gang that runs Patty's Pub. Everyone else outside of that pub knows that they all suck.
Right. And I haven't, I've been meaning to watch It's Always Sunny. I am not, I want to say straight up, I'm not opposed to watching It's Always Sunny. It's just one of those shows that it's really long and
Dude,
I just haven't had the time I mean, now I have the time, I guess, to get into it.
it is so funny.
That's what
Like,
everyone says. They say it's great. And it's one of the few shows where people are like, just watch it from the beginning. And I'm like, holy
yeah,
shit. Okay.
episode 1 will get you hooked just because how funny it is. And you just have to keep in mind, like like the main characters, they're all pieces of shit, but they all
Yeah.
have different qualities about them that make them likable. So it is so funny. And they're all delusional. They
Hmm.
all they all think they're so great, and it's like,
But see, that's the
okay.
thing. It's that right. It's like The Office, right? And I mean, it's like The Office mixed with Seinfeld because it's that right kind of cringe where you're like, these people suck. Like they're just kind of crappy
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
And like you're fine watching them because you know that they're crappy. You know, the things everyone knows that they're crappy. And it's not like idolizing it. I think that's really where some of these things break down is when people are like, it's like Rick and Morty is a great example of that, right? Like when people are like, or Tiger King is another great example, more
Oh
recent.
god.
Joe Exotic's so fucking amazing. It's like, no, that man belongs in prison. He needs
Yeah,
to stay there. Like
yeah.
you are picking up the wrong angle from this show. You do not need to glorify this guy. He's not a good person. I mean, someone lost their arm. But
Well,
yeah, so it's stuff like when you take it that direction, it can get kind of bad. where it's like you're getting the wrong thing out of this. But I mean, at the same time, like you can enjoy that stuff. Like I enjoyed Tiger King because of its absurdity, and I'm like, these people are insane, and like something should be done about these people. But I'm not sitting here like, God damn, Joe Exotic's the best goddamn person I ever did see. Holy shit.
But it's funny because like it is self-aware because you see the interviews with all the other people that are like, so what do you think about Joe Exotic? And they're just like,
Yeah.
and that's how Ash versus Evil Dead is. Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody like outside of even like Pablo
Oh, well, that's the thing. Pablo and
and
Kelly are so
Kelly,
aware of the shit.
they're
Like
just like, oh my God.
and that's what's great about it, right? Is because they do this crap. They're like Bruce Campbell's character Ash will do stuff, and like Kelly and Pablo react the way, for the most part. I mean, season 2 starts changing a bit, but like in season 1, they react the way that we, the viewer, react. Is like we'll cringe a little bit at something he says, or we're like, that's really stupid, or it makes you look like an asshole. Like you're
Yeah.
not sitting here like, oh my god, Ash is fucking amazing. It's like, no, Ash is kind of self-aggrandizing, but like it's funny to watch because it's everyone around him is like, you're an idiot.
Yeah. He's still pretty like awesome though, in a way, because he's stupid and they all know it. And they cringe during like the first season, but he's the El Jefe,
Yeah, he's a jefe.
so they all know like, all right, he is stupid, but he can take care of business.
Yeah, and I think that's the angle you get him with, is it's just like, yeah, he can take care of this shit, but he's also stuck in the 80s. So and I think that's the funny part of it, right? Is it's
Yeah,
kind of
his
like
head's stuck in the '80s so
he's
much.
like Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite, with like a tinge more like misogyny and latent racism. It's just like, here it is. We're going to talk about this, and it's like, yeah. Yeah, I don't know why they
Yeah,
expanded on
he's
that, but
he's kind of a numbnuts, but
yeah, for sure.
that's what makes him so great, though. His character is the stupidest smart person.
I agree. And I mean, just from, I think it's like on the higher level of like the director, Sam Raimi, who made the first 3 movies. And then I think he directed like at least the first, sorry about that. I think he directed at least the first episode. Oh, I gotta stop looking at these. Are spoilers, man. I haven't seen this stuff.
That's nothing. It's just
Yeah, I know, just screen grabs. But
don't give away
apparently
anything.
there's so much like crazy stuff. So I guess a friend of mine was telling me, because they did a whole bunch of research on like Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi, and like that's like their favorite director and actor, and they were telling me like, I guess everything Sam Raimi has directed has that 88 Delta in it.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that, I don't know if you know this or noticed this, that 88 Delta is the car that Uncle Ben is driving in Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi movie, when he gets
Holy
killed.
shit.
Yep. Look it up, dude. He's driving that car. That's the
No.
car that Sandman and that other dude steal from him. Yeah. Spoilers, I guess, for Spider-Man 2001 or whatever the hell it was. Go
I
ahead and look it
just
up.
like I know Sam Raimi obviously directed those movies.
Yep. But every movie, and Bruce Campbell's in them too, but like in every movie, I guess he tries to put in that car somewhere. And I know it's in, the Oldsmobile Delta
Oh
80.
my
See,
God.
there it is. Look at that. He was driving it, man. That's the car.
Wow. I just never thought of it. Is this his car or is it?
Oh, there we go.
There you are.
Yeah, no, this cable just sucks. I gotta probably switch it out with another one, but
There,
I'm not gonna worry about it right now.
there you're good. Is this his car or is it
Yeah,
like?
so in The Evil Dead, the first movie, right? That's the car they're driving. That was Sam
Yeah.
Raimi's car. As far as I understand it, that was his car, like when they filmed it, and they were all buddies and they filmed this movie. Then when I guess like there was maybe he like sold it or something, but he got it back because he really liked the car. And it is in it's in the Evil Dead 2, it's in Army of Darkness, as you can see there. It's in whatever, all of them. It's in it. It's obviously very, very prominently focused in Ash versus Evil Dead. It's like the car they're driving around everywhere. But I guess like ever since the Evil Dead, like he's just put it in all of his movies. I'm not 100% on the story about it, but I know that at least it was Rammy's car, and then he either sold it and bought it back or something. But it's been in the mall, and I was just
So
like, "Wait a
cool.
minute, was that the car from Spider-Man?" Like, holy shit!
That's
Um,
so funny.
and it's nuts because like I don't think I'll ever be able to watch Spider-Man different or the same anymore. Just like after seeing Evil Dead and like knowing in Spider-Man, like because like what Bruce Campbell plays the waiter in the third one, the usher in the second one, and he's the wrestling announcer in the first one.
Look who's ADR engineer uncredited for one episode in 2015.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know Michael J. Fox did ADR engineering.
Well, let's make sure it's the actual
Watch, it's
Michael
a
J. Fox.
completely different guy.
Some other guy.
It is a completely
Yeah.
different guy.
Oh
Okay,
my
that
god.
I feel like hold up. Looking at like this guy's what has he done? So it's you got
The
sound
host.
he does a lot of sound stuff for these movies. I could see him being
Feast.
like
Dude, that
when
movie looks serious.
I've never what the heck is this? I need to get this on my bigger monitor. I don't know what the
It's
heck
just
is.
it's like a horror movie about some wicked looking monster, I guess. I don't know.
Oh Jesus Christ, okay.
That looks cool.
Or it's terrible, one of the two.
Might be terrible. More than likely.
Oh, they made like three. There's the
It's a
next one
cool
is
looking
called
monster though.
yeah, but the sequel's called Slippery Seconds. Don't like that.
Sloppy seconds.
Sloppy Seconds. I'm sorry. I still don't like it.
It looks like it's gonna be one of those
What's
like
the rating? What's the rating? It's got a 4.3 on Metacritic, and it's got a
6.3.
Yeah, I guess there's worse movies out there. Who's in it? Stars people I've never heard of.
Dwayne Whitaker, Boss Man,
Oh boy. These people
Balthazar
don't have
Getty,
names. These people don't have names.
Finger Girl.
Okay.
What? I'm so confused.
Jason Mewes is in this movie.
Holy shit. Edgy
That's it.
cat.
And he's like what, 7th, 8th, 10th credited in this? I don't know who the hell that. I don't know what this movie
Weird.
is.
I met him a couple years ago. He's really cool.
That's cool. Yeah, because like I heard that he kind of like had a lot of problems and then he came back
Tons.
from it. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like severely like on drugs
Yeah, he had some drug issues, but
and
he's
came
like,
back.
yeah,
Oh, he's all
definitely
straightened out
on the
now.
way
He's got
out.
a daughter. He's married. He's like a family guy now.
Well, that's good.
Dude, when I met him, quick story off topic. Eyes First Evil Dead, but
Humble brag over here, more like it.
I was at the Tampa Bay Comic Con a couple years ago, and I knew he was going to be there, but I forgot. Like leading up to it, I was getting ready, and then we drive over there, and
Yeah.
completely forgot he was there. We're walking through, and you see all the like the tables and everything with all the actors that are supposed to be there for autographs. I see Jason Mewes, and I'm like, oh shit. And it like said Jason Mewes on the thing. It had his picture, but he wasn't there. And I was excited. I was like, hell yeah, I want to meet him. And I go up to the thing, and the lady that's working the table was like, hey, Jason's not here right now. He had to step away for a few. And I'm like, oh, okay. Do you know when he's going to be back? And she's like, oh, anywhere between 20, 30 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll come back. So me and my girlfriend were going to walk around and stuff. And as soon as I take like 4 steps, I hear, hey, what's up, man? And I'm like, what? And he comes up to me and like he dabs me up and like gives me like the bro hug. And I'm like, what's up, man?
Well, shoot.
And he's like, what's going on? I'm like, man, just looking to see if you're around, but here you are. He's like, yeah, man, sorry about that. I was just hanging out with Stan Lee. I was like,
I mean, I wouldn't pass that up.
I told him, I'm like, don't blame me for doing that.
I don't
It's all
blame
good.
you.
He's more important than me. He's like, yeah, Stan had to get going, so I had to went over there and say hey to him for a second. And I'm like, damn,
Dang.
that's cool.
Oh, well, also R.I.P. Stan Lee. I mean, shoot, that's a hell of a loss, but that's still pretty dope. I mean, I don't blame him. I'd rather have hung out with Stan Lee than you for 5 minutes.
Don't blame you. Don't blame you. I would too.
But yeah, no, that's pretty cool. I've met a few people, but I don't think I've ever had like a random experience like that.
Well, that was like before I even got his autograph and everything. Like, I had to pay for like an autograph and like for pictures and stuff.
I think that was that was so disappointing when I learned that you got to pay for that kind of stuff, and it's not just you made the line so you get to go. Or I guess not so much like I knew you had to pay, but like how expensive some of those are. I mean, holy shit,
I
man.
think it's funny. It's like you see some of these actors and they're like huge. I mean, they're
Mm-hmm.
huge actors. They make so
Right.
much money, but they still cost like an arm and a leg to meet them at a convention. I'm like,
Right.
you have like these boots on that you're like getting endorsed by this company.
Right.
You're making money right now as you're wearing those just for wearing them. And
Yeah,
then you're gonna
my
charge me
rule
a
of thumb
hundred
there
something bucks for an autograph? Like, come on.
my rule of thumb is like if it's gonna be triple digits, I better like really want to see them. And I don't think I've ever been in that situation. I think the
Yeah.
closest I ever came, like my wife and I went to C2E2, which is like the Chicago's Comic Con. We met like Carl Urban this past like this was probably one of the last conventions that happened this year before all this stuff shut down. But we met like Carl Urban. His was, it was more up there, but it definitely wasn't like breaking the $100 threshold. And then I even met like Patrick Stewart years ago, and that still wasn't breaking $100. But dude, I shit you not, Mark Ruffalo, or however you say that, he was there, $250 for a picture.
No.
Yeah, I was like, oh hell no, like, dude,
Like, he's
just
a douche.
no, like, I'm not doing that.
He's a douche.
I mean,
I don't I
yeah,
don't care.
I'm just like, I mean, I'm not that crazy about meeting the Avengers as it is, but $250, dude, that just feels like you're twisting the knife at that
I
point.
would
Like,
pay $250 to meet Scarlett Johansson, not gonna lie.
I don't know. It's so like they just funnel you in and out with the picture thing. And I like the pictures better because it's like, yeah, you get the autograph and all, but either way, I'm just like 250 is not worth it. Like,
I would pay
I'd
250 to
rather
see.
gamble running into you on the street.
Uh, that's I mean that's fair. I mean, yeah, you could go to New York, honestly. Just go to the subway and you can probably meet somebody.
Well, the way I always figure is like, I guess if I really wanted to play that gamble, like in the city here, all these people are staying probably somewhere downtown. Like,
Yeah.
if they're there for more than one day, I mean, just go hang out probably at some bars and stuff downtown. You might run into somebody. I don't
All
know.
the athletes and everything. I mean, they all live downtown,
Right. You're
more than
going to see
likely.
somebody.
Yeah.
That, I mean, it depends. If they want a house, like they're not living in the city probably. But either way, I mean, it's just like, if you really want to try that, I guess you can, but I'm not like, I don't know. I mean, it's just at the end of the day, famous people are just people who probably want to be bothered more, who want to be bothered, not bothered more than you don't want to be bothered, I guess is the best way to put it. Um,
I got what you're
yeah.
saying.
Yeah. But yeah, so
How
I
much
don't
do you
know.
think Bruce Campbell charges for an autograph?
I don't know. I don't think it'd be like, I think it'd maybe be like $80. I mean, I don't know if there's a good way to find out, but
Um,
I'd say like $80 would be where I'd put that on.
I mean, I keep seeing like I'm on Etsy right now, and on Etsy, I see
Etsy, the fuck?
Evil Dead signed movie script, screenplay, autograph, Bruce Campbell, original classic horror film signatures.
But I
So
see, like that's like for the thing though, right? That's like when people are selling. Look, I had this autographed, and it's like hundreds of dollars because it's so like
I got this.
collectible.
It's Ash vs. Evil Dead pilot TV script with signatures, autographs, reprint, unique Christmas gift, whatever. Yeah, okay.
Mm.
It looks legit. I mean, it's not obviously the real original, but yeah, it's like the loose leaf papers with the little gold things in
Yeah,
the
the
punch
the
hole.
brass little yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. It looks legit. Like it looks like something they'd hand you. Be like, all right, read it.
I mean, it probably was. It probably was, and then somebody had it signed or something. I mean, but there's like hundreds of those scripts. Like, but as far as like if I went to a convention and just got him to sign some, I'm gonna guess like $80. If
That's
it's more than that, that's like, I don't know. I would hope he's a better person. I
all right. I'm on brucecampbell.com. All right.
didn't know that was a thing.
I did not know this was a thing either. I want to share this real quick. This is kind of cool, actually. Not gonna lie, like Bruce Campbell's cool, but did you think he was this cool?
Oh, it depends. Did he make this himself or did someone make it for him? And it looks like someone made it. What does that say? This is the only place where you'll find.
Well, this obviously hasn't been updated in 10 years.
Oh, yeah. Oh, maybe he's just not doing. I mean, he retired, right? Like he
Autograph tickets. So this was back in
2010.
so price at $40 each.
There you go. See, yeah, and that's fair because you see further confessions of a B movie actor. Like at the end of the day, Bruce Campbell is like a B movie actor. Like he's not.
I would say he's like C.
I don't know. See, I mean, like Evil Dead's a great movie, and he is in Spider Man and stuff like that. But he's
Sure.
not like a main role. So I mean, like I think that sits him at like a B
I think it's
kind of
fair.
movie. I mean, like it's fine, and it doesn't like mean he sucks or something. It's just like because he's really good at what he does, and that's what I liked about Evil Dead. Just all the Evil Dead movies is it's like watching Bruce Campbell is fun. Um, I think one of the things I even said on the Army of Darkness episode for us is just like I kind of want to see the universe where Bruce Campbell played the Grinch in that live action movie instead of Jim Carrey because I think he'd
Huh.
be perfect for it. Like there's just some stuff he does in some of those second two movies where I'm like,
I
this
never thought of
level of I don't know why I did. I just know it was like, oh, this is so goofy. It reminds me of Jim Carrey in The Grinch. And I was like, holy shit, what if Bruce Campbell was just Grinch in that movie? Like that would have been wild.
that would be
Um,
insane, dude. I would pay so much money for that.
but like I could see it though. Like I could
I'd pay
see
40
it being like
bucks.
equal to or maybe slightly less than what we got with that movie. Like I could see it. And I don't need it to happen because I don't think we need another live action Grinch, but it was kind of interesting. Like I was just thinking about it. Like I feel like Bruce Campbell's like a more stabilized Jim Carrey, so to speak. Because like Jim Carrey's comedy is like he's wild, he's going crazy and stuff, and it's good when it's
It's
in
very
parts.
physical.
Exactly. Like he's like manic, and it's like it works, when the role calls for it. But I feel like you could have the more subdued Grinch or something with Bruce Campbell, like Bruce Campbell and Cable Guy or something like that.
I think if Jim Carrey was in the Evil Dead, at least a TV show, like one of the movies,
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't. I feel like if he was in this TV show though, that would be amazing. Like this is a good show for him to be a part of.
I think as long as he dies by the end of the episode, I'd be fine with it. Just because, like, I think that would be like a level of it'd just be distracting. I
I'd say
think,
the end of the season would be cool.
but totally like just him being in it and doing something crazy, like just being there, and then he gets killed at the end. Like, kind of, I think of him getting killed at the end, kind of like Bill Murray gets killed in the middle of Zombieland 1, where he's just like, I'm present and I'm very self aware. Like, I am playing myself, but in the apocalypse. I think like something like that. Like it's Jim Carrey and they're like, oh man, I loved you on like Saturday Night Live and stuff, and then it's like he gets killed by the Deadites, or worse, like they have to kill him because he turns into a Deadite or something like that.
I think it'd be cool if he was a Deadite.
I think that would be the role he'd be perfect for. Is
or a
just the
demon.
right, like just the crazy over the top, like I'm gonna kill ya, I'm kooky nuts
Like
monster man, like yeah.
I think it'd be cool if he was like the likable guy when they go into town.
Mm-hmm.
They get into whatever town they're going to, and it's like, and then Jim Carrey's like, "Oh well, hey, how you doing there? Nice to meet you. What's your name? Ash. Ash. Okay. Pablo. Very nice to meet you.
Yeah, exactly. And then by the end, he's just like, he's like, I'm a Deadite now, and like, just attacking people and shit. I don't know. I think that'd be cool. Um,
Just little cameos like that would be amazing.
yeah, I'm kind of
Little parts
surprised
like
there's
that.
not more. I mean, I haven't finished the show yet, so maybe it changes in the final season. But I mean, I was kind of surprised that like I was really surprised that uh Ash's dad wasn't someone who was like a little bit more prominent. Um, like I recognize the name, but admittedly, like I didn't recognize the dude.
I liked him.
I liked him. Oh, he was fine. Like I don't. That's not like to say anybody like is bad. I actually think like everybody in the show has pretty great chemistry and they work really well together. So like the casting's on point. But I was kind of surprised there wasn't like a bunch of like big name actors or something like that cameoing in this movie or in this show, at least like for one episode or something. Like Kelly's parents weren't really anybody. They were just like somebody and random, and then they died.
They were just throwaway actors.
Right. And that's where I'm like, make all the throwaway people, like, not all of them, but like some of the throwaway people, like famous people. And they'd be funny because then you get to see somebody like Jim Carrey or I think somebody does a lot of cameo stuff like Mark Hamill or something like that, where they're like there and then they turn into a deadite, they're crazy, and then they got to kill them, and like, goodbye TV show, I'm never coming up again. But
It
like,
would feel
it was
too much
fun.
like a Jay and Silent Bob movie, though.
I mean, like see, I don't like. I'm not a biggest fan of the Jay and Silent Bob movies. I tried watching like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and I was like, this is okay, but you're right. It does feel. I guess my problem was like, it does feel like cameo after cameo after cameo,
That's
and it's
kind of what
like,
people
yeah,
like about
okay.
it. But no, I feel like they did a pretty good job with the casting. But you know who the Ash's dad reminds me of?
Hmm.
It's like if you take the guy from Holes that's like always talking shit about him, the old guy.
Okay.
What
Yeah.
what's his name?
Shit if I know. Isn't it something? Isn't it something where like his name is Ashley or Shirley or something like
Yeah,
that at the end of it? Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, yeah, sure. I think it's Shirley, if I'm
It's
correct.
something they're like, your name's Shirley, that's a girl's name or something like
Yeah,
that.
if you take him and then Uncle Ben from Spider-Man and then put them together.
Well, he's got to be a little bit more raunchier than Uncle Ben from Spider-Man.
All I'm saying is like you take him and then Uncle Ben and then put them together, and that's the guy.
Yeah.
That's Ash's dad. Like that's who I don't know. That's who I thought though. Like right when I saw him, I was like, "Is that Shirley from Holes?" No,
I didn't realize, yeah, his name is Mr. Sir. So,
Mr. Sir. There you
Mr.
go.
Sir. I didn't realize John Voight was the one who played him. I completely forgot about that. There's like a handful of
Yeah,
famous
that's his
people in
name.
this movie. Um, yeah, John Voight's character in Holes. I forget Sigourney Weaver's there. I was actually thinking, that random dude who plays Sigourney Weaver's dad in the flashback is like, that's too damn bad. Like, that's kind of who I thought of.
Dude, but isn't that one of the best like TV or movie moments?
I think it's great. It's like, Dad, I'm tired of digging. And like, that's too damn bad. Like, and I remember like seeing it when I was younger and being like, whoa, he said, damn, like that's a word. Like, I can't say that at school.
That was a Disney movie too. What?
Yeah, I know. I constantly forget this was a Disney movie.
I can fix that.
Oh, yeah, he's in this movie. He's not even like credited that high. That's kind of shocking. Yeah.
So out
Yeah.
of
So
out of the Ash vs. Evil Dead show so far, you're what, mid season two?
mid season 2, I guess. I'm on like season. I think the next one up's like season 2, episode 4, or season 2, episode 5. I basically got spoilers for Ash versus Evil Dead, but like I guess I got to like right when his dad gets killed by the possessed Delta. So it's like that was like, holy shit, am I really gonna go to bed right now? And I'm like, well, I gotta get up in the morning. So yeah.
Um, so what do you think so far of the show? I mean,
Oh, I love the show. I love the show because it's like it's just enough plot versus like just craziness and like humor and horror to where I'm like, this is entertaining. I don't have to be like, it's not like something like Breaking Bad, which is amazing. Like it's a great TV show, but like you have to kind of be like watching it. You can't just have it on the background unless you've seen it already.
yeah.
Whereas this show, I can kind of move between like, am I watching it now? Am I like watching it later? Am I just kind of letting it go? What's going on?
Is it a show where you're going to be on your phone the whole time and get like disinterested into it, or are you going to be actually like focused in and like really watching it? Because
Well, like,
there's
yeah,
some
like,
shows I turn on now and I'm like, oh, let's try this out, and then I find myself on my phone and I miss the first 15 minutes, and I'm like,
yeah.
it just doesn't get me hooked.
No, this had me hooked, and I think I was like ready to go with the first episode because I was like, "Oh man, I love these movies! Like, I just watched these movies for the first
Yeah,
time. Like, this is really cool. I want to see what this show's about. Everybody keeps telling me it's good, so I watched like the first episode.
that
And
space trucking song gets you freaking hyped up, man.
oh, the whole it's just like I think it's one of those shows where it's like this is a perfect way to introduce this character because they're just like, yeah, Ash as a person is complete shit. Like he's a shitbag. Like let's be real. He's not a good person. And like the way this movie opens is the show opens is it's kind of like, hey, look, it's Ash being shitty and not being able to be a badass because, as far as he's concerned, the Evil Dead stuff is done. So it's like, let's show him like lie about his hand and then bang some random woman in a bathroom, in like a dirty bar bathroom. And like, they go that extra
For you.
step. But they actually go the extra step where the bartender's like, the first thing the bartender says to him is, "We close in 10 minutes," and Ash is like, "I know," and I'm like, "What a dick." I'm like, I just kind of would sit there and I'm like, man, I think I've showed up to bars when they were about to close on accident, and they were like, "Hey, we're about to close, so you can't order anything," was sort of where it came to, and I was like, "Okay, sorry, I'll see you later," and leave. But the fact that he's like, "We're closing 10 minutes," and he's like, "I know, I want this, that, and the other thing."
Well, just like that, like police officer in season one, where he's just like they're in the diner, and she's with, or like it's right before they meet up with her,
Uh huh.
and they're in the diner, and he's like hitting on the waitress, and then she's like, "You see the chef back there? That's my husband."
Yeah.
And he's like, "All right, cool.
But
Well,
yeah,
go
well,
ahead and use
he's
the
like, I
bathroom."
like that was the best thing because he's like, "I get it. We got to keep it on the down low. That's totally fine." And I'm like, "That is not where this was going, you
He grabs the
dumbass!" Like,
he grabs the cinnamon breath mints, puts them in the water,
oh
and
god, I
taps it on.
know, I know. I was like, "This is
That's him,
so,"
though.
and it's funny because it's like, it goes back to that self-aware. Like everyone knows he sucks, but him, and like that's the joke.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's funny because the show opens where it's like, well, what if Ash didn't have a bunch of Deadites to kill? And like, what kind of person is that? And it's like, well, it turns out it's a really shitty person. And like, here you go. But I kind of like that about like season two is because we're introduced to like Ash's hometown. And it's not that he's a, dick. Like, no, everyone's not like, oh, Ash is a dick or, oh my God, Ash is a hero. It's like, Ash is like they either make fun of him and bully him, or he's like they consider him like a crazy axe murderer. And I'm like, this is kind of a cool angle to take because you're in your second season and it's like, how do you keep people interested, right? Like if you just do in season one again with higher stakes, it's kind of just like, well, who cares? I'm gonna fall off it because I just saw this. And like as I've ranted on our show enough times, is like that's my problem with Marvel. This is the same movie, but in this case, it's not the world, it's the universe. And it's like, how do you get bigger than the universe? In the comics, they go like multiverse, but do I care? But if it's just doing the same thing, you just kind of can pick and plug and play who you want in roles. And I kind of like how they're like, well, let's take this a different angle. Like Ash is bullied, Ash is, getting picked on and stuff. So
Yeah, you get to see a couple more layers to Ash, and especially when you roll around season 3, you'll realize you're like, huh, it's weird seeing this side of Ash.
and it's great. I'm like really looking forward to it, and that's great to hear because it's like, okay, cool. Like these characters aren't gonna stop developing, by the middle of season two or something like that. They're gonna keep going until this show's done, and that's like how you do a TV show. You have to develop people. Like if the people just stay static the whole time, I don't know. I think of a lot of shows like in the '90s. I remember, or like early 2000s, before we started getting kind of the whole season wide plot thing going on. And it's just like week after week of an episode of something happening. And by the end of it, everything's just back to the way it was. And we go on with our lives. Like that is boring. Like it just, if nothing means anything, what's the point? It just looks really cool and then it's over. And I like how we move to a different, you know, thought on how we approach TV and stuff.
Oh yeah. No, I think this show is something that isn't going to be properly replicated. And if they do decide to come back to do a season 4,
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to how that will happen. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do. Once you see the end of season 3, you'll realize that they kind of knew they were going to get canceled.
Yeah. And I mean, that's fine as
Fortunately,
long as it
yeah,
wraps up.
yeah, like once you get towards the end of season 3, you're like, yeah, you could kind of tell that they knew they were going to get canceled after that season, so they kind of just, you'll see it. It's cool. It's not like anything bad.
Yeah.
But if they actually did a season 4, it'd be very, very interesting to see.
Well, that's good to know then. Because I guess like I don't know, you see a lot of shows like I think some of the worst times is like say a show like I don't know, like Firefly, and it's like got one season and then it was canceled, and it was just all the stories around that show. It's just like they released the episodes in the wrong order and just, the show was screwed from the start. It doesn't really like the way it ends okay in like a you can imagine what they do next kind of way, and then you get a movie and all that stuff. But it's kind of like it sucks because it's just like, okay, here's a show that say you want to watch it, and then it doesn't end. Like it's totally fine if you have one season of a show. There's shows I like.
Supernatural.
Well, yeah, there you go. But I mean, like, it doesn't end in the sense that like you will not get any more Firefly, but you're never gonna get like a resolution, at least until the movie comes out, and then even then you only kind of do is up, and then you're just like, yeah, no, we're not gonna figure it out, and that those suck. Like, I like how at least nowadays, these like studios and television studios and stuff are like giving them just enough time to be like, hey, so you're going to get canceled. This is your last season. So when you write it, make sure you address that you're not going to get any more after this. And then they can like end their story as opposed to like being halfway through a show and going, yeah, no, we're not renewing this. And it's like, ah, shit. Okay. Well, we're already done filming. So sorry for the spoilers or sorry for the tease for season, 27 or whatever that's coming out. But I don't know. I heard that Supernatural. I've never watched really Supernatural. I've seen like bits and pieces of it. But I heard that show got delayed because of this whole Corona thing and a bunch of other stuff that happened. So like it's like episodes, like a handful of episodes away from being over, and they're just like, no, we're gonna wait because we can't finish production. And I'm like, that's gotta suck for long term
Yeah.
fans.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, they're gonna get it. It's not like it. It's not like they just cancel it and didn't finish the show. Like it's been going on for so long.
Right.
They'll get it. I'm sure they'll be happy. I mean, you don't see a show go on for this long, and then
Yeah.
someone's like, "I hated how it ended." It's not like Game of Thrones.
I mean, Game of Thrones, How I Met Your Mother. I've seen the last episode of How I Met Your Mother. I've only seen bits and pieces of the show, but I know kind of what happens in it.
Oh, I like it.
I've heard so many people hate the ending, and like I can see why. Like I can totally see why people hate the ending of that show because it does kind of seem like I don't know, like it seems like a slap in the face to spend that much time working towards something only to go back to the first thing.
They grow a lot as people, even though it didn't work out for How I Met Your Mother. Like for some of the characters, it didn't
Mhm.
work out how it was setting it up to be. Like they still all grew as people, like as individuals.
Right.
So you see that. So that is cool in my book. I'm fine with that. But no, Ash gets cooler.
No, I
He
like that it's fleshing
he's
him out.
Yeah, and you get to see more with Pablo and with Kelly, and
Mm-hmm.
Pablo starts to get smarter and he grows some balls, and
No, I love what they're
Kelly
doing with
keeps,
Pablo, and
Kelly keeps kicking ass and doing her thing.
no, I think with I like how the show isn't just because I could easily see this being okay. Look, it's Ash and these two young people, just kind of static characters who are like following him around,
It's not like
and
teen
I
humor or acting. It's like they're adults.
and that's what's great about it is it's like okay, cool, like we have three actual characters as opposed to it's the Ash TV show, and here are some people to fill space and like talk to him or something like I like how Pablo and Kelly are also characters that change and grow throughout the show. And like it's is because you're right, even at the beginning of season 2, like Pablo is getting like, balls, so to speak. Like he's getting courage, he's doing some more badass shit. And it's just like this is cool. And I like watching this because I'm not just like, oh, it's a Pablo episode or something like that.
No, I mean they did such a good job with this movie. They did a good the show. I mean, they did a
Mm-hmm.
good job of like balancing everything out. And I hate shows that it's like we're gonna do like in Family Guy. It's like it's gonna be a Meg episode. Oh, great! It's like no,
Right.
I don't really like. It's cool seeing the Stewie and Brian episodes, but
Yeah.
I love it when, and I can probably speak for a lot of people, but I like it when everybody's together all the time. And in different scenes, you can branch off into different people. But as far as like this is going to be a Kelly episode, it's like they do a good job of always incorporating each other into the episodes instead of just having it one person the whole time, and then you kind of get you get kind of tired of that person. So
Yeah.
everybody's always involved, and it's really cool.
Well, and I think that's the nice thing about this show and the movies really is that you're not dealing with like a huge array of characters, right? Like, with things like Family Guy or like The Simpsons, for example, you have your kind of core group, but you take the time to introduce all these other people to the point where you give them like entire episodes. I mean, look at The Simpsons. You have episodes based on Flanders, and it's like, why? Not that they're necessarily all bad, but it's like, who cares? Why do I want to watch Ned Flanders do something when this show is called The Simpsons? Um, so like in shows like Family Guy, when you're like, I'm going to take the minute to do the whole Meg thing or whatever, they're fine. Well, I'm not really big on the Meg episodes. I don't know if anybody is, but like
Shut up.
The Stewie and Brian episodes, like those are fun because they're so absurd and they're so in a way. Like when you think of like when they meet, like I think they meet like what Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd, and they're like, yeah, we're spies. We're actually spies from Spies, and we're doing this thing, and like that doesn't make any sense in like a it doesn't make any sense. It's absurd, and that's what makes it fun to watch. But when you start having too many characters that are kind of developed, it's like just too much, and it's like I now don't care about anybody. Um, and that's what I like about Ash versus Evil Dead is pretty much everybody you get introduced to either says goodbye TV show and leaves, or they get killed, and it's like that's fine. I'm still with these 3 to 4 people that I'm cool with. I'm watching them do things. I care about what they do. I kind of care about the relationships with these like ancillary characters, but whatever.
Nah.
Also, I don't know, Flarex's comment over here in the live stream.
Yeah, what up, Flare X?
Yeah, how's it going, man? I don't know if I agree with that so much as I blame the showrunners. I mean, everything kind of points to them. They got lazy at the end. They didn't want to do it anymore, and they were stuck doing it, so they just kind of said screw it and just did whatever. And I think it screwed themselves because they lost out on a Star Wars deal and I think a Netflix deal. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure if they're still on that one, but I know they lost their Star Wars movie after the shit show that was Game of Thrones. So
Yeah, that whole thing. I was trying to be a fan like right before the last season aired.
oh, I'm so sorry.
I was trying to catch up, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna really be like headstrong, get into the show, and then like it. And then I got through season 1, and I'm like, all right, I'm on a roll now.
Oh, I
And then,
see your point, by the way, Flarex. Yeah, no, I can agree with that. Sorry, Cody. Go ahead.
yeah, if he had finished the books, yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say that too. Like he should have finished him, but he's lazy as hell.
Well, and I think it's like, and I totally agree with this. Like, I hate, I get you have a personal hatred for Martin and stuff like that. And I think the biggest thing is it's like you, as an author, it's like I don't blame him, but I hate him for it because it just means you don't give a shit about the thing you created. Is that he writes these books, these are like huge. It's like a really big deal, but only in the niche that it's in. Like I've never heard of Game of Thrones before the show, but
Yeah.
people who are into like fantasy novels, they're like Game of Thrones is the shit. I'm so excited for the show. He makes fuck tons of money on this show because he's
Oh
like
yeah.
given credit every single episode. This show is arguably the biggest TV show probably of all time so far. He's making money hand over fist. He doesn't need to finish the books. And like from a financial perspective, he doesn't need to finish anything. He's set for the rest of his life. It just sucks because it's like, you know, you really like don't care about the people reading these books. You don't care about the books you're writing if, you're just like, I'm not going to finish this book I've been working on for like over a decade or something like that. Like it just seems kind of like you don't care. Don't pretend to care. Just, if you're going to take the money and run, take the money and run.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people feel about George R. R. Martin the same as like some of us do about like George Lucas. It's like we still like him and we still love George, but there's that little bit of part of you you're just like, God damn it! Like you could have not sold the franchise. How about that? Like,
And I think if you think about it, like,
I'll take this Ash vs. Evil Dead thing away because we're totally done talking.
yeah, we're kind of over that. I feel like we're moving into Star Wars again, but
Yeah,
I think to go into Star Wars, I think George Lucas. Think of the world where George Lucas decided to make a sequel trilogy after the backlash that is the prequels, and then like you know, you'd have some people on board because of Clone Wars and stuff like that. But I think it would have been approached maybe ultimately not the same because like these three movies are their own problem in and of themselves. But I think people would have been like, really, we're going to do this again? Like, awesome, more Star Wars. But I think everyone would have gone in with the apprehension of like, oh man, Lucas like is doing this. We already did the prequels and a lot of people didn't like them and like the original three were good. And I think when Disney was like, we're gonna do it at the time of seven, everyone was super hyped because it was like, oh yeah, we're getting more Star Wars. And like it's guaranteed not to be like the prequels. And we already like these Marvel movies that Disney does. So this is gonna be awesome. And then it was just like, it was okay. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt for seven. And then it was like, okay, let's make like The Last Jedi the most. Nine is just nine's just a cluster. I mean, it's not. I can't even bring myself to be like nine sucks because I barely understand what the fuck happened in that movie. Like it's just a
Yeah, it's
thing that happened, and I'm like
it's
eight made
super.
more sense than that.
Nah, I, man, like, I get kind of why he sold it, but at the same time, it's like you can keep hold of the franchise, just have other people like in charge.
Yeah,
Like that's literally all you had to do. You didn't have to sell it, but
I think.
it's also it was Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy in his ear, and just really brown nosing him,
Well, I think it's you
and
get
he was lied
handed.
he was lied to as well.
I mean, I don't know. Correct me. I don't know what the number. I don't remember what the number was, but wasn't it like upwards of $1 billion or some shit they paid him for Star Wars? I mean, like, arguably, if I'm not planning on doing anything with this property anymore, and someone goes, "Hey, we want to make these movies. We'll give you $1 billion," I'd be like, "Yeah, okay." I mean,
Make it
you know,
four.
well, it's just kind of like if you're gonna, if you tank, it's on you. I'm not attached to this. Like, I don't care. I wasn't gonna use it. You want to use it, make more, go for it. If they suck, then it makes me look good, which it kind of does, right? Like, oh hey, okay, 4 billion, thanks. Um, it's kind of just like, you know, if you suck, it makes me look awesome because it makes the ones I made look good. If yours are good, it makes it look like a good decision on my part because I let you guys make these movies. Like it's a win-win-win for George because no matter what, he gets $4 billion. He gets to have his name still attached to it, and it's just like, yeah, I
There's
mean,
a thing
shoot,
there's a thing released last year, and a lot of people didn't know this because it wasn't really like public news, but apparently George still gets a lot of residual rights to all the
oh
characters
for sure.
that he made. So that's one of the reasons why they started doing all these shitty characters. That's just one of the reasons, but it's a big underlying reason why they started going with all these shit characters instead of the good ones that we like and not using
Well, I think
Han
it's
and Leia in the same fucking movie.
well,
Like
I think it's great. Like, I think like when you say shitty characters, that's just like the result. Like they didn't. It goes back to the whole problem. I think everybody, no matter whether you like eight, hate eight, like nine, hate nine, or any, as far as the sequels go in general, I think everyone can agree there was no thought put behind these movies as far as all of them being like a linked
exactly.
thing. And that no matter what you think of the characters, like there are characters I like, there's characters I hate, there's scenes I like. I mean, if there's one thing I got to say about like The Last Jedi is I think cinematically it's really well shot. Like it's a really good looking movie, but my problem at the heart of it all is that I feel like some of those really awesome shots were done with the sacrifice of plot points because some things it's like, well, we're gonna get this really cool looking thing, like for instance, the little hyperspace, what do they call it, the Holdo maneuver or whatever.
Oh god.
Um,
They
like
named it. They actually named it after her.
and like,
Thought that Kamikaze would be named after a fucking purple haired feminist looking chick. Like
but my thing with it is it's like I don't the character. I think there's a ton of stuff that leads up to this really awesome looking scene. Like when that thing goes through the first order flagship, that looks I'm not gonna lie, that looks really fucking cool. It's really well done. It looks nice. But all the things that lead up to that shot happening make like no sense. Like how Haldo's like, I'm not going to tell anybody I'm doing this. And it's just like, but why? Like, you're not telling anybody you're doing this. And this is the problem is the movie wants you to think like, okay, she's just not telling Oscar Isaacs because he was demoted. That makes sense. Like on a military level, I think that makes sense. His rank isn't high enough anymore. He doesn't get to be in the group. Cool. Fine. But the fact that like nobody else knows this and she's not telling anybody who actually is higher up, like I don't know, I guess Akbar dies in the beginning or whatever, but like everybody else, like she's not telling anybody that this is the shit that I'm gonna do.
She
And
gets
you
like mad at him for like no reason. Like he doesn't do anything wrong at all.
and this is another thing, right? Is like you could have it to where you maybe introduce her with something else in the beginning of this movie. Maybe do like a flashback or something to where she is dealing with like character to where she says something, he doesn't follow orders, he does basically you know how this, okay, so like I'll rewind. You know, in 8 the movie starts where Oscar Isaacs is like, you know, or Poe, I think that's right, Poe is like, no way, Leia, this is our only shot, we're gonna take this fucking thing down, and he disregards the orders and does it anyway, right? And like all that shit happens. They really should have had like a flashback moment where Haldo is telling some other rando this stuff. The rando does the same thing. And instead of like, we successfully took out the dreadnought, it's like, you fucked the whole mission up. And like the First Order gained a lot of footing or something like that. Then I can believe Haldo hates Poe purely based on stereotypes because Poe is that stereotype. She's not wrong. It's just that the movie can't have our heroes, like it seems like this is a Marvel Disney thing. I think is it's like our heroes can't fuck up that hard. They can only screw up in just the right amount to where I'm okay like with them still. If Poe botched that thing in the beginning and like it really really went south, I'm talking like they don't blow that dreadnought up, they maybe disable its weapon at best, then I can believe all the shit she gives him because he did fuck up because he didn't follow orders. Instead, it's like, I mean, he did the thing and you were going to do the thing anyway. Shit kind of got fucked up because, like, for some reason, your bombers move at like a snail's pace compared to the
They're
rest of
made
this
out of
crap.
fucking paper.
Yeah, I didn't understand. I mean, there was a lot of that stuff I didn't understand. I didn't, again, another scene that I think was sacrificed. The shooting was sacrificed. The plot was sacrificed for the shot when we're introduced to Rose's sister. I remember the first time when I saw that movie, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a cool new character. That's going to be interesting. And like we spend all this time on her. And the whole time I remember thinking to myself, like, how is she going to get out of this? They're in space. Everything's going to shit. Are they really going to kill this woman off? Like we've spent what feels like 15 solid minutes on her. Like it's a lot of time to spend on a character you're just going to kill like in the beginning of your movie. And sure enough, they do.
Rose Tico's sister.
Yeah, in the beginning when she sets the bombs loose and then she dies, like she sacrifices
The hotter
herself,
one
right?
out of the two, so they killed the hot sister and then kept the annoying potato sack wearing one.
Well,
Like,
I mean,
like, glad you guys did that. Like, okay.
my issue is just like you spend all this time on this character, like let's see that character. Instead, they try to use it like when she dies and all the stuff that happens. Again, cinematically, it looks really damn good, but it doesn't do anything. Like it's supposed to be sort of the setup for Rose's character. I guess to me, as someone watching the movie, I'm just kind of like, but I didn't watch Rose do those things. I watched her sister do those things. Rose is a different person. So any development I got there is not translated over, aside from the fact that, like, this is her sister. They're not clones of each other. They're not going to be the same person. It's just kind of like, and yeah, I think that's true. I also think your previous comment about Trek is sort of like in a similar vein, though I think lately and outside the movies, I think the shows have been going a lot better than the movies of Star. Like if I were to compare the new Trek TV shows to the new Star Wars movies, I think those new Trek TV shows are doing a lot better way handling some of this, especially Picard. I really liked Picard. I think it could have spent some more time on not Picard aspects of the show that I thought were really cool, but As far as it went, it's better than Discovery, and it was really interesting. And
I
I
don't know.
really like Patrick
I don't know.
Stewart, so it was fun.
I don't know shit about Star Trek, so I'm the wrong person to ask questions about that.
No,
So
I like them both pretty equally, so I know a lot about both. But yeah, the new, I mean, if you had to compare them, I think the new Trek is handling it a lot better than the new Star Wars has. But yeah, all in all, these movies were done in the same way of like, I don't care about this content. I'm just going to make these movies. And it's kind of clear, like, from the advertising and from, especially the toy marketing and stuff like that. It's like, yes, you are making them, you're doing what people didn't like about six, right? Was like, well, we're going to make these Ewoks and we're going to like wedge them in there because,
I have a problem with it.
but I mean, like, this is something back then that a lot of people didn't like was Empire's a dark movie, comparatively speaking. It's like a
Yeah,
lot darker than any of the other ones. And you go from this dark movie to a bunch of teddy bears running around a forest. What? Um,
it was kind of like one of those things where they get to the planet and those are the indigenous people and they're bears and there's like what?
well, apparently, I remember reading
Also a
when
moon too, so it's not even like this seriously developed like planet of this advanced beings. It's just a fucking forest moon.
no, and I mean, Star Wars is one of those movies where there's so much written on it, so much can be fake, so much can be real. But I remember when we did our episode on that god awful, um, you know, apparently the Endor, or the moon, the forest moon of Endor, was actually supposed to be Kashyyyk, and like you were supposed to be dealing with a bunch of Wookiees. And so one of the arguments was like, oh, well, instead of Wookiees, we don't have enough, money to
Technology.
make. Well, no, they were just like, we don't have enough money to make all these Wookiee costumes. So we got
Oh,
to do something else. And then the studio was like, well, what if you make them cute teddy bears? We could sell those as toys. And I mean, like, if you think about it,
not
one Wookiee costume could probably equal like two Ewok costumes just in materials. So cool.
maybe
But
because
maybe three.
you see him in Revenge of the Sith and you're just like, damn,
Yeah, exactly. And I
six,
think it's,
six. Like,
well, it's also kind of funny because it's like, if they were Wookiees, a lot of the show would make sense, right? Like when the Ewoks are taking down the ATSTs and they're just like killing these people with bows and arrows. I'm like, these are teddy bears doing this. It's really not believable as far as, I mean, it's Star Wars. You can't really, you got to take all of it with a grain of salt. All these movies, Harry Potter included, can't
yeah,
take them all. But I would believe it more if an army of Chewbacca's are beating the piss out of these guys as opposed to a bunch of little teddy bears just kind
yeah.
of taking them down. But I mean, it's fine. But I think it's that kind of mentality of like, well, what can we sell as far as toys go from this movie? And I got to admit, like, that is the majority of advertising I end up seeing for Star Wars is like, check out this new toy, check out this new thing, as opposed to the movie itself. And I mean, it's definitely angled towards kids, I think, getting the toys and recognizing the characters. And that's fine. Like I said last time I was on here, if kids like this and this is what gets the kids to like Star Wars and they're enjoying these and these are their favorite ones, like that's them. It's okay to like a movie, but I guess I'm just like, I feel like it kind of comes off as disingenuous because it's like, we're making this movie to sell shit and not sell tickets, not sell the movie, but just like sell toys and merchandise. And it's like, well,
When you look back, I mean,
lame.
a lot of Star Wars it's based off the merchandise
Oh,
itself.
for sure. I'm not even going to pretend like the old ones
Cool.
weren't.
What's cool is like, yeah, you have these little teddy bear things. Are they going to sell a lot of toys? Absolutely.
For sure.
Is it going to hinder the story? Nah.
No, and I think that's the difference, right? Is like I watch these ones and all I see is like a cool gizmo, like that dagger. Like all I can see is that dagger is a toy, or
Yeah.
Rey's lightsaber at the end of the movie, which is kind of cool. Like I kind of like what she did. I thought it was clever and I like how it turns on and off and that's orange and all that shit, but that's a toy. Like you do this cool scene to show your next toy. And it's like that's cool, but it goes back to the problem I had with 8. It's just worse because you're not having really cool looking scenes. You're just trying to showcase stuff to sell, you know?
Sports.
And
Yeah.
it's lame. But yeah, it just is like, oh, cool. Look, a new stormtrooper figurine's going to come out from this guy or whatever. The First Order storm. Yeah, they're still called stormtroopers, right? I
Yeah.
have not paid enough attention
What's
to
funny
these.
is like they came out with that Sith trooper. It was like all red, and I'm like, oh, okay, let's guess how much screen time it's gonna have.
Just enough to make you
Okay,
want to buy it.
30 seconds. Well, they don't even do anything. They just like shoot their gun a little bit, and
Because the point is, look, it's a red stormtrooper. Didn't you always want a red stormtrooper? Isn't that so fucking cool? Now you're gonna want to buy that thing, or you're gonna want to cosplay as that thing, or whatever. And like, yeah, I think I brought it up last time I was on here. Is just like, I like when the movie ends in a way where you can imagine what you want with it. And this is where I'm kind of curious how kids are reacting to these movies, is because you are being given a bunch of stuff, right? Like you're given this Sith trooper. It's just a red stormtrooper. To me, it does, and to you, it's on there for 30 seconds and doesn't do shit. But like to this kid who buys this toy or buys this Halloween costume, what are they going to do with it? Like, what is this character going to be for them and whatever imaginative thing they're doing? And I'm looking at it now, kind of going, this isn't how I think you should approach it. I think you should try to make a quality movie, but like, are those kids getting something out of it here when they're toys and junk? It still comes off kind of like a scam, but at least it's.
I can tell you right now, I fucking would hate these movies growing up.
I don't think I would. I don't know if I could. I mean, if I was a little kid and you're giving me this as the Star Wars that my parents like, because it's kind of like the prequels, right? Like people say the same thing about prequels, and you and I grew up with those. Is like, this isn't my. There were people who were straight up like, this is not my Star Wars because it's not
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker and stuff. Whereas
Well,
we were
that
like, these are so cool because they look so modern, and it's like, I guarantee you, kids are doing the same thing.
well, you see, like you see like how Episode 1 starts, and it's clearly before Darth Vader, and this was everything beforehand. Now, are the movies all perfect? No, but
God no.
if you look at the if you look at the whole overall thing that's happening, the whole overall theme of, you know, this is the big picture here, and then it sets you in this world pre New Hope. It's pretty cool. Like you get to see way more stuff. You get to see droids actually in army form instead of just as computers and turning on switches and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is like you
Force,
those
like shit. Like you get to see some really neat shit, and I mean, it sets up this whole overall story, and it's supposed to like show you something and why Darth Vader is, why he's Darth Vader. But here, it's like, what in this sequel trilogy are they trying to tell you? That some random bitch on a desert planet, and the first movie's a knockoff of A New Hope anyway, so you kind of see what they're doing there, but
like for me that was fine. Like I was like, this is a knockoff. It's clearly not going to be my favorite one. And then if I had to pick the best one of the sequels, that one would unfortunately be it. It's that, I could see it. You want to take a really, as filmmakers, you're like, look, people loved that first Star Wars movie, New Hope. I mean, let's just kind of do that again. Let's be safe about this and like get people back in. And then the next movie is when we'll really put the screws to it and twist it all up. But then they ultimately twisted it all up in a way that just did not work out and the whole thing fell apart. But, I remember watching it going, yeah, this was just 4. And that's not a terrible thing because you want to get people back into these. Go with the one that made it all happen. I think it comes a little cheaply because they sort of go like they're tongue in cheek about it. And they're like, yeah, I mean, this is just another Death Star. And it's like, yeah, you understand you're just doing the same movie. And those are the scenes where I'm like, this is where it's getting kind of dumb. Like
like it makes sense how the Death Star was made. But then you see, it's like you walk into a movie where it's like, here's a Death Star, but it's a planet, and it's like, okay, well, we have the Republic. It's all against the First Order. It's like, how the fuck did they rise to power? Did they not?
And this is the problem: is they create this.
Like nothing was really like explained. Nothing was
No.
set in stone. Like this is what happened. These are the rules that are introduced. This is what's happening. It's like, no, you're taking what was and you're just twisting all of it. Even from the beginning with The Force Awakens, it was all twisted. It was all bent to what they wanted, but it didn't make sense according to the rules and laws and the logic of the franchise and the movies beforehand. Like
I
anything
think
post 2012, they're just like, we're gonna throw most of it out the window, and we're just gonna make our own shit up. It's like, okay, you can teleport things, and like, what's stopping you from teleporting itself? Like, how do you have this necklace that you just ripped off of Ray's neck? That doesn't make sense. Can you just appear in front of her now and like physically or what?
and that's
Like,
the thing that I hate, that I feel like they, when they made these movies, they try to cram too much. They try to have their cake and eat it too, right? Like, we want to have cameos of Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford and all these other people, and then it's like, well, what if they were just in the movie? And it's like, well, hold up a minute. We set this movie 30 years later so that we could. I think like on paper, you start. Let's make a movie that's 30 years later, right?
George expected them all to be in there. George is the one that got them all in there.
But what I mean is like, if you, and this is the problem, is like, I think you say, let's make this 30 years later. That way we don't have to like constantly be referring back to the events of episode 6. It's far enough away we can kind of do our own thing, sort of establish the world that we're in the current climate and go from there. But then you tie in these legacy characters and you tie in these events and you make it about, weirdly, about Darth Vader, kind of, sort of, and Palpatine ultimately and all that shit. It's like you screwed yourself because you want to make all these things that people recognize, but you set it up in a way where it's like, so Palpatine's over 100 years old or whatever, and he's just a clone, but we're not going to talk about it. And then you add in the fact that it's like you wrote this hodgepodge movie and you're like, we got to fill in the gaps. So let's have some other media do that. Like the fact that you don't really figure out that the star killer base or whatever is the planet Ilum until you really play. I didn't figure that out until I played Star Wars, this new Star Wars video game. How was I
That's
supposed to know that?
film.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a spoiler because they don't tell you, but like you go to Ilum in the game and it is in the process of being mined out to build the Death Star, but it looks identical to Starkiller Base. Like, and it just raises more questions. It's like, okay, so you're building this?
Fucked up on so many levels, and it's going to take more than one episode of a podcast to explain this.
Agreed.
Just like all those reviews, you don't review them. You can't review a movie at those scales and critique it in a 30-minute review. No, you have to go a long time and go in depth to explaining why. But the thing is, they've did it so bad, this whole Star Wars everything from 2012 on, from a toy and collector standpoint to a moviegoer standpoint to a Star Wars fan standpoint, and like anything related to Star Wars, like they fucked it up. Like you're gonna make these movies, you're gonna not explain shit and expect people to buy all this other media and have that explain to them why this didn't make sense in the movie. Like you can watch every Star Wars movie and it can stand on its own, and that's fine. And it explains what it needs to explain. You get these new movies and you're like, why is this that? Like, why are we doing this in this movie? Well, if you buy this 3-book series, it'll explain it. It's like we shouldn't have to do that.
I completely agree. I
All
think
stuff was like bonus. Like, did you ever think about what happened with this character? Well, doesn't really pertain to the movie, but here you go. Here's some cool shit. Here's some extra cool, fun things to read and video games to play. And it's like an add-on bonus. Here you go.
right, it should supplement the movie, and that in the sense that like it makes things that you saw in the movie that much cooler. And I mean, that's how all these books and things started, was like the original movies would be like, here's this random character who's there for 10 seconds and dies. And then it's like, well, what's his name? Oh, look, he has a name. Let's make an entire book about this person. And we can, because we'll make it up. And there's nothing there already sort of rooting this character. And the character doesn't matter because he dies. So it's like, whatever, who cares? It's just like, oh, that's so cool. That's Bippity Blop Thon Gleep Glop. And he's, this bounty hunter from the planet, whatever. And it's just like, you get this cool thing. And it's like, who cares? So,
Sounds like we're making Rick and Morty characters right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's that kind of
Flip flop,
nonsense, but
hunter from the planet Gloob Gloob.
yeah, exactly. Well, it's and stuff like that, right? Like
Yeah,
you can do those things, and I think I completely agree with your point that like the reason these are failing, or I don't know if they fail. I mean, they made millions and millions of dollars, but I think the reasons that like these sort of don't really work for me is because you're making all the supplemental stuff that I have to read. If I really want to understand what happened in the movie, I have to read this book or I have to play this game. Or worse, like I think I find the most egregious one is the beginning of episode 9, they're like the dead speak. And it's like whatever that message was, you'll only hear it in Fortnite. And
yeah,
I'm like, that is absurd to me that like this cool thing that they could have just showed in the beginning of the movie they put into a video game, like not even a Star Wars video game, just like a random video game that people are that's popular.
yeah.
Aside
It,
from it not aging well, it's just kind of dumb. Like I'm not going to go out of my way and play Fortnite just to do that. Like it's just kind of stupid.
yeah, it was funny. Like I play Fortnite and I love the game. And then when the Rise of Skywalker was coming out, they had the whole like Rise of Skywalker add-ons and shit to the game, and it's like the only cool thing was they actually put lightsabers in the game, so you could
Mm.
use Kylo Ren's lightsaber, which I never use because fuck that. And you can use Luke Skywalker's green lightsaber. You can use Mace Windu's purple lightsaber, and then you can use Anakin's lightsaber, the blue one. But it says it's Rey's lightsaber, and I said nope, fuck that. I'll use the green and the purple one. That's it.
I guess I just don't like I find a lot of that stuff cheap in a way. Like it was one thing in like games where it's like we're doing a little homage to Star Wars by having this or whatever, but it's another to be like, yeah, here we're just gonna like blatantly stick Star Wars in this other thing. And I mean like stuff does it. I'm not gonna pretend like other stuff doesn't.
They do it with Marvel movies. They do it with Star Wars. They do it with Deadpool. Deadpool's on there now.
But I
Like,
mean like it's just I guess it just bothers me that like you want to take this one-off event, so to speak, and make it a very integral part of your movie. I mean, if anything, you're nailing down your audience, right? Like you're kind of limiting, okay, now this part of this aspect of the movie is only really for the people that play Fortnite, which tend to be between this and this age group and blah 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 blah. At the end of the day, that's not me. So
yeah,
I'm now alienated from your movie because I don't play this game that I really don't want to play. So it's like that's kind of shitty. Like all you've done is make me not want to play this game more and not like your movie more, and that's the problem I have with a lot of the stuff that like Disney has been doing with Marvel and with Star Wars lately is that they're doing things which kind of alienate viewers. Like they're in the sense of Star Wars, it's like oh like or Marvel's even probably a better thing in the sense of like memes and shit. It's like well what's the funny happening internet thing now? Oh, it's this. Let's horrendously date our movie with jokes like that and then go from there because like that's one of my problems. Like I think it's funny in Infinity War when Robert Downey Jr. is like, "Sorry, Squidward, Earth is closed today." It's funny because I watched SpongeBob when I was a kid. In the future, in like the near future, there are gonna be people watching that who are like, "What the fuck's a Squidward?" And like that joke is just gonna land flat. And I think it's things like that where it's like you really don't necessarily want to put jokes like that in these movies because in the or especially memes, how like a short the life of a meme is. Like when I see something like that in a movie, I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like you
it's
just
just
killed
like
them. You just killed it, and it's now forever and ever and ever. This movie will permanently be 2015 or whatever.
it's just like putting a your mom joke in the Last Jedi. It's like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Well, and it's stuff like that. It's just like this is wild. Like to do
It
something like
cheapens it.
that. Exactly. It cheapens it, and it
Like
and it
movies like Jay and
cements
Silent
it.
Bob are good because it's like a stamp in a moment of time where, hey, these references are, going to be more relevant for this time because the first Jay and Silent Bob was in '01
Mhm.
or something. So those references and everything you're going to get, that's going to be for that time, and you're going to get it, and it's going to be funny, and you're going to understand. Hey, I can look these people up still if I don't understand the actor reference, but for the most part, you're going to understand what's going on. But you put a movie like this where it's its own set of rules, own set of laws and physics, and um, I mean, it's its own thing. And then you're going to add modern day real life jokes into it and references. Like, you can't fucking do that. Like, I don't want to hear a goddamn your mom joke in a Star Wars movie. No, I want to hear. Now, if you want to put a your mom joke in Star Wars, but it's the Star Wars version of like a your mom joke, like I really liked in the prequels how they, or also in the comics, like in the comics, they'll insult people, like they'll call
Mm.
them fucking bantha poodoo, or
Yeah.
like you're a shithead, like similar, like they make up insults and stuff, but it's like in a certain language, like Sebulba.
Yeah.
Like Sebulba will insult people, but it's the Star Wars like world's lingo of hey, fuck off. Like that's essentially what they mean.
Right. And I mean that's because you want to keep your movie and content at a certain rating, right? Like you can't say fuck off. I mean, to bring back like Firefly, for example, they got around swearing constantly by just doing it in Chinese, and the show doesn't become this like MA rating where you're saying fuck off all the time. You're just like, oh, I'm saying it in another language, so it doesn't count. Star Wars is
You
doing
couldn't
the
do that
same thing,
now.
right? Well, probably not now, but like Star Wars can still do it because when you say like, "Oh, you're bantha shit," you're saying some other random like word and you're making it up, and it works there because you call it world building and it's goofy, but it's part of your world. When
Yeah.
you do something like a your mom joke, it's not only seriously dating your thing, but it's just your movie, but it's also just like, why are the people in Star Wars making jokes about this? I think the big difference between something like a Jay and Silent Bob movie or whatever is like that's a comedy. Like if they do that, the only things that cause problems are things that aren't really cool to say. I mean, like it kind of goes back to our conversation about Ash versus Evil Dead, right? Like he says shit that's like that's racist. Like you shouldn't say that at all. And it's like the only reason it lands as humor is because everybody in the show knows it. Everybody addresses it as such except Ash.
And that's the character though. That's how the character's written.
But it's like the point is that it's like, hey, we're going to highlight that this as a thing isn't funny anymore. But the fact that it's ironic. It's
And
like
they don't make it the
everybody.
norm with every single character. Now, if they did, that'd be one thing. It'd be like, whoa, what?
Well, that's my point exactly. Is that it's
Yeah.
the opposite. Every single other character is like, whoa, that's stupid and racist, and he's like, whatever, and like that's the joke, and like, yeah, it doesn't land with everybody, and that's fine. You know, again, it's okay to like a show, it's okay to like a movie. My problem when you do it in something like Star Wars is it's like its own contained universe. It's not really a comedy. It's not doing that. It was
It's
never
also way
trying to
more
do that.
prestigious than Ash versus Evil Dead.
But I mean, it doesn't even, it's just the fact that like you're making something that's different. Genre wise, it's
Yeah.
different. And it goes back to wanting to have your cake and eat it too. And you want to make your movie do all the things and be as popular as possible. So you stuff it and cram it full of junk that just like, you know, you could have cut some of that out. You could cut out yo mama jokes from your Star Wars movie or whatever. But like it, the whole problem is it's just like,
You're
don't,
undoing a franchise essentially. You're basically like you're deconstructing a franchise that didn't need to be deconstructed. It didn't need a makeover. It didn't need anything really like new. Now, as far as new ideas, and I mean, yeah, there's always that you can do because it's all made believe anyways. So if you make
yeah.
believe more, that's fine. But if you're legitimately trying to take the franchise, disassemble it, and then redo it, you can't fucking do that. Like, and that's what Ryan Johnson did with The Last Jedi. Now, I personally don't like The Force Awakens, and I think
Mm.
it fucked Star Wars up a lot. But if you're in comparison to The Last Jedi, whoa, like The Last Jedi severely made problems for this franchise. And I'm about to show you right here. Ryan Johnson made The Last Jedi to undo the trilogy claims Star Wars editors. So, and we got a fucking anime pop up.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what it was. And I think you bring up a good point about deconstructing is like, you know, people like to use that word as a means of like, we're going to deconstruct this to make something original. And like deconstructing has this kind of artsy vibe to it. And when it's done correctly, it works really well. Like you're taking something that's too blown up, you're bringing it back down to its roots and you're doing it. And I think what was happening with this movie that you have on the screen right now is just like you wanted to change the rules that were already provided in now 7 other movies, right? And then not to mention a whole movie of setup and threads and things like that. If you really wanted to make this deconstructed, new ruled Star Wars, you would have made another prequel trilogy. Like that's
Yeah.
how you get around this is you make it before all the shit that happened so that you don't have to abide by any of the shit that happened. You just have to make sure you don't change anything super far down the line. And
It's
I think
also,
that's where you screw up here is you make it too, and this goes back to what I was saying, is like you could make your movie 30 years later and have nothing to do with the events of the other ones. Like just make it so far away that like you kind of dealing with like what is the world like now or the universe galaxy like now, but
but here's the thing,
who
they could have
cares?
done that, but they didn't use any of the elements from the whole saga.
That's what I'm
Like
trying to
that's
get at is
yeah,
like
like you could have made a Star Wars new trilogy, but you add different characters, but you keep the same species of aliens, and you have your humans. Sorry, I have the hiccups, but you have the humans and everything still. I mean, that's not going away. But instead of using all these other species and different characters that George made and Star Wars has had around for decades, you're going to create all these new weird alien species that all resemble each other instead of having some Caldorians, instead of having some Twi'leks or something like that. Like you could have had these new characters in there and it would have been cool and it would have still been Star Wars. But no, you're not going to add Rhodesians and all these other cool species. You're going to add these all boogery looking fucking characters that made no sense. And you're just like, wait. Are we still in the same universe? What is happening? And
Well, I
I
think it
hate how
comes.
they use the excuse like it's such a huge universe, Star Wars. It's such a big galaxy. There's so many different. It's like no. We've introduced all these so far. Fucking add them.
I mean, and it's I think it kind of goes round to like your point or both of our points really it sounds like is like if you're going to take what was already done and you're going to put it in your movie, you have as far as storytelling is concerned, in my opinion, you have to follow those rules until
Yeah.
you write a way that you don't have to anymore, right? So you should arguably have some of these other more prominent aliens in these movies because like and yeah, I agree with Flare X. It's like don't make it just about the Skywalkers. That is one of the biggest gripes about these movies in general is they're acting like they're the only flippin' family in existence in a galaxy of planets. And it's just sort of like you can have these other species and you can have your new ones too. There is no reason that in a galaxy full of planets there's only like 17 different aliens. Like that
Well, it
doesn't make any
ultimately isn't
sense.
even about the Skywalkers. It's about a fucking Palpatine, and then a
And
stormtrooper,
this
and
is
then some
and
pilot.
that's where it falls apart, right? Is like you you can have all these expansive things. I guess to finish my point before is you can have all these expansive things, but put them all in the same place. Like
Yeah,
why not? And I think their problem again goes to the toy sales, goes to how many spin-offs you have. When Star Wars was originally written, you know, like or made, they didn't plan on these books. They didn't plan on like an EU. People who were interested did it and they got permission to do it and all this other stuff.
and
And they
George
did it.
actually like helped out a lot too. Like he created a lot of like EU characters.
And like the thing was though, is those EU characters were in a lot of the movies are just like Jabba's palace, for example. Like you have a lot of just they're there. You know, they're
Yeah,
crazy aliens that are just present. As far as just the movies are concerned, they are nobody but background. And then they get a book, or they're introduced in a book, or they're a character who's with somebody else, or whatever. You
yeah. You
know,
can make a new character and then add a species that had like no screen time,
the
and
problem I
then
have
that's
is though
fine. But don't like
don't force it. That's what I'm trying
yeah,
to say is that these
yeah,
movies come off like when you kind of rehash in 7 the cantina scene on Maz Kanata's planet, like there's really nothing wrong with that scene in and of itself, but when you put some context in it, it's like you're just trying to make spin-off characters. Like you're trying to force an EU to happen when that's not how this was approached at all. At least, I mean, I don't know about George Lucas's ulterior motives with Star Trek or anything like that, or Star Wars, I'm sorry, or anything like that. But it's just kind of like those things happen naturally. Those things happen because somebody was like, man, what if that guy had a story? And then they'd proceed
Yeah.
to write a book, as opposed to, what's happening with all of these franchises in general. And I hate it, is it's like, let's force this crap to happen. And it either comes off at best shitty fan fiction, or at worst, just it's so blatantly obvious it's taking me out of the movie. And I think that's a big problem that these sequels had, is just they're doing things to try to set what they think is low key setting up things. And instead, it's just so obvious, at least to me, that it's taking me out of the movie and I'm not enjoying it anymore. I'm not in the universe like I am with the other ones where they're just doing shit. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. I mean, the times it takes me out is the times where they're referencing the old ones as far as the prequels go. I think the thing that The Last Jedi did was they tried to skip a step, and they screwed this pooch on it. Is like, you set your movie 30 years in the future. Theoretically, you shouldn't be talking about six anymore. None of that should be a part of your movie. But because you wanted the star power, because you wanted these people in it, you have no choice but to introduce Luke and Leia and Han and everybody and put them in your movie. So you have to refer to it. So now you're stuck. You have to follow the rules of six. You can change those rules when you set it up to do that. What the eighth movie did was it sort of skipped the setup and just went straight to breaking the rules. And you wind up with like, okay, well, now you just shat on the first one that came out. In reality, why did you make it 3 movies? This would have worked if it was 4. I mean, seriously. Or just don't tie in 6 to your movie at all. I mean, shoot, you could just not. I mean, you could make an original Star Wars thing, and that's why I don't know about other people, but that's why I liked like Rogue One, or oh, Solo's okay. I mean, it's the thing is, like, I don't dislike Solo because it's not bad, but it's nothing special. It's just a movie. And it's just kind of like those work because it's like, here's a one-off story that, like, yeah, you might know what happens next in the grand scheme, but who cares? Like, it's done when it's done. And with these other ones, it didn't feel like there was a story to be told. It just was like shit happened and then it was over. And it all kind of maybe had something to do with each other, but at the end of the day, it didn't focus on the parts that were the through lines to the movie. Really, the through line should have been the resistance. Why is the resistance a thing? Like, why is there a government and then a competing government and then a third entity that is the resistance? This is like
Yeah, you have.
some weird politics that I maybe want to learn more about. Like, why is that there?
I honestly, I could care less about learning about it. They could have easily explained shit, but they're just like, nope, got to read these books. No, you don't explain it in the movie. Mm-mm.
Well, and that's where I'm like,
The prequels establish how the Empire was made. It makes sense. It establishes how they got away with it and how the Jedi Order failed to see this shit. And they
right,
explain
and
the
that's
power of Palpatine and how he was able to cloud all their vision to be able to convince and kind of slither his way into the Senate and then take over. And
and
then the original trilogy shows the Empire at work, and then
then
the
you have a
remaining
rebellion. Yeah,
the remaining good pieces of the Republic that weren't changed,
yeah.
trying to eliminate it and then bring order back. This one, it's you have the Republic, you have the First Order, then you have the Resistance. It's like, so the Republic is what? Just one planet? Is it all the planets that got blown up? Is it more than that? How is this, like, you're at the point in the game now, you got to explain shit because George laid it out.
But it's
Now
also
you
been
got to establish, like,
30 years.
it's exactly,
Like,
it's
that's my
30 fucking
problem,
years.
is you're
It's 30
setting this up
years.
like it's 4 years later, and it's like, no. It's like, I understand, I mean, it's a galaxy. Theoretically, it'd be pretty damn hard to get an entire galaxy of planets under, like,
What'd you
the
say? Sorry, I couldn't hear you. You
oh,
got cut
sorry.
out.
I was saying that, like, it makes sense because it'd be really hard to get a galaxy's worth of planets under one political system. Like, I mean, that's why the Republic stood for like 1,000 years, right? Like, you're build, and even then, when the Clone Wars are occurring, there are planets that are not part of the Republic. So it's like, I can get it. Not everybody's going to be flying the same flag, but the way it's constructed is as if the Republic, the new Republic, is like toothless and has no ability, and yet the First Order is like totally there. And it's sort of like the resistance. I guess I look at it and I'm like, the resistance is either a, and it probably was, is a means for Disney to kind of be like, it's like the rebels, but we don't call them rebels because they're not really rebelling. And it's just sort of a cheap parallel there. And that kind of drove me up the wall. But like
Well, that's the
the
thing. Like it makes sense that the Empire would still be around. Now,
totally
30 years is a stretch.
that's a
But
big one for me. I'm like, I don't know if 30 years, maybe you don't have everybody flying the same flag in 30 years, but to still have people going like, we need the
yeah,
Empire. I don't know.
like
Like,
30 years, I could see some sort of Empire being around, but not the same. And there probably wouldn't be stormtroopers. But like after Return of the Jedi, you see how the Mandalorian, it's like the Empire's still a thing, but they're not as powerful. They're kind
well,
of just there.
and that's what I like
And
about The Mandalorian is it's like it feels a little bit more real. Is like you don't have, and that's what's unrealistic about the sixth movie is it ends with just a big party, and we're assuming that everything's okay. And it's like, well, no. In reality, you had a galaxy-wide
yeah,
military empire that was like controlling everything with an iron fist. For that to suddenly disappear and everyone be cool is not a thing. And at the same time, for you think all these people in the empire are going to quit when there's now just a nice little power vacuum to take it over? I'm
but it
sorry,
definitely
like
helps that it like in the EU, it's still a thing. Like the
right.
Empire's still around, but it's not as serious now. Their Death Star blew up.
Mm-hmm.
Both
But
of their
see, and it's like,
leaders, their top two leaders, their Sith Lords are gone. There are no more Sith Lords remaining within the Empire. You got Luke, you got Mara Jade, you got Han, Chewie, Leia, who's becoming a Jedi, and then you have the kids that they have. They have Jaina Solo, Anakin Solo, and Jason Solo, and then Luke has Ben Skywalker.
right. And I think like
And
the
then he
thing,
builds the thing up. He builds the Jedi Order back up, but you have the Empire still around, but a bunch of shady shit happens in between that. You have these different officers and everything that are still around.
mhm.
You have all these other people that were under Vader and everything that are still loyal.
And
So
that's
of
the
course
cool
they're going
thing
to
about
still
the
continue to
Mandalorian. Yeah, is like
yeah.
you have like because to me it's like the Empire was more than just two Sith Lords and a Death Star. It was like you had a galaxy-wide empire or military. You had these stormtroopers who you can put garrisons on entire planets across the galaxy. And it's like, what are all these fucking people supposed to do when they're gung-ho empire and the empire's not there anymore? Like
But
they follow the next person up. And that's gonna be people like shit, I don't remember the actor's character name in the show, but you know, it's going to be people like in you see in
Gina Carano,
Mandalorian. Yes, him.
yeah,
Um,
her.
or no, not her, not her. I'm sorry, the guy he's in Breaking Bad. He plays Gus in Breaking Bad, who you see in Mandalorian at the end of
Oh,
the season.
oh,
Um, him, like you get people like him who are, as Flare X point out, like these kind of warlords, and they're like, yeah, I have my army of people that followed me. They're going to continue to follow me because now I'm going to promise them we're going to be the head people in the empire. And it's like
yeah. You're
that's
gonna
the
have these.
kind of go
Yeah,
ahead.
they do that in the EU as well. Like they go into
Yeah.
depth, like all these officers and these commanders, like especially like Admiral Thrawn, for instance. Like
Hmm.
he's a fucking nightmare to deal with in the
Right.
EU. And then you realize you're like, oh shit, like he's a very prominent, not just a general, but a warrior as well.
Oh, you know, and that reminds me of one of my most hated parts of the entire ninth movie was that you get you get the perfect parallel to that. You get that random whatever general something or other that like kills Hux in the ninth
Yeah.
movie. He, without a doubt in my mind, should have been Hux from the fucking beginning. Like there should
Oh
have
yeah.
never been like
Oh yeah.
the fact that it's like it in the Empire. That is the kind of mantra you need to like you need these people to have. You don't need them being like, we're the first order, hooray. It's like you need to have them honestly like, let's rebuild the empire. You need to be more upfront with the we're gonna rebuild the
Yeah.
empire, but we think we're gonna do it better.
They tried to mirror the whole Vader and Tarkin like relationship. Like
But they made it a
Vader,
joke,
Vader,
and it was
Vader
annoying.
respected Tarkin, and Tarkin respected Vader, but they both went after it like at each other. Like Tarkin was very close with the Emperor, and the Emperor, respected Tarkin enough to keep him in charge. And then Vader, if Vader did something wrong, Tarkin can be like, "All right, take him away," and then that would ensue a huge battle.
Mhm.
And Vader still couldn't touch Tarkin though because the Emperor liked him. So there was that really cool relationship between the two, to where they had to respect each other and just work with each other, even though they didn't like each other.
And that's
And then you
where
have
they
Kylo
really
Ren and
yeah.
Hux, and you're like, I don't see how this is going to work out, but I respect them trying. And then you get to the
Mhm.
Last Jedi, and you're like, wasn't Hux trying to be evil?
Yeah, I
What's
mean, the fact
happening
they make
now?
him a joke was kind of annoying. Like, I didn't mind when I saw 7, the whole, like, competing for Snoke's, I guess, love or whatever you wanna call it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm
Like, that
saying.
was
Like, I
fine.
can understand that, like, to a degree, but
But then by the
they
time you're in 9, it's like, oh, he's so jaded because Kylo Ren got to be the boss that he's now like a turncoat for the First Order. Like they put a lot of these things in these movies, and I think this is something Flarex is over here pointing out. Like the EU did dig into things a lot more deeply in general, I think. And I think the big problem is you tried to do that depth in 3 movies worth of stuff. And it's like the reason why Clone Wars works, the reason why The Mandalorian is such a hit is because it's actually like well-paced content that is fleshing out the world, but it's not slapping you in the face with like all this new junk that doesn't contribute to the story. Like you pointed out with the aliens, it's like here's a room full of a bunch of different aliens, a bunch of different droids, blah 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 blah, and it's just like yeah, but this isn't doing anything. Like, I'm just kind of handed a bunch of new shit. It doesn't contribute to the plot. And ultimately, you spend so much time on it that there's no more plot to have. And it's kind of like it cheapens it, like we've been saying, but it's also like you didn't pace it well enough. Arguably, Star Wars would have been better if it came back as television shows at this point. I
I
mean,
think they should have probably went that route, and they just had Harrison and Luke. I mean, it would have been tough. I honestly, and somebody, I think Jeff Hicks said this of world class bullshitters. Like, if in 1999, instead of making episode one, they should have went ahead and just did 7, 8, 9, and then today they could have made 1, 2, 3.
I mean, and
I
at the end
I
of the day,
agree with that to
that
a
was
point.
George's call. I mean,
Yeah,
that
and
that's his call. We
it
can't
could have
go
gone either
uh,
way. I mean, especially if he didn't sell the franchise. Like if he sold it, then that would be fine. But since he
well,
sold it, it's like I'm kind of glad they didn't let Disney do the prequels, because then they really would have fucked shit up. But
I mean, I mean, if we're saying like Disney did the exact same movie, like we're doing Vader's Rise to Power, like arguably, I think the prequels could have been better in some respects, just in the sense that like everything is a green screen, nothing. Like that is something I
yeah,
really liked about this new sequel movies. I mean, everything I like about these new ones is purely cinematic, and it's nothing to do with the content. It's that we are doing some really good practical effects. We are getting sets that aren't just 3 people standing in front of a green screen. Like we are actually making something and it feels more real.
there's so much green screen in these sequel movies. I mean,
Oh, we're not saying it's not there. For sure it's there. It
for
has to
people to
be.
be like they're way better because they use practical effects. I'm like, you know how much
Well, and that's
practical
the
effects they
thing.
used in the prequels? They used a
Uh,
lot,
they
like
use
way
they
more than
use
they were given credit to.
I think I can agree with that to an extent. But I mean, like, look at the behind the scenes footage. It's them standing on a green screen. And then, other movies do this. Again, Marvel movies do this all the time because you can't create some of those sets. Like, you can't really make a Coruscant without a green screen, right?
They made a lot of
Outdoors.
good set pieces though.
Then they made some
Like
cool set pieces.
and
And
like you can't build Geonosis and those huge like droid gunships and shit. Like
oh, for sure. And I think that's where, you have to do some of that with CGI. And I think it just became a little abused. Like, I'll
and it's
agree with
still
it.
acting
But,
too. Like on the actor's standpoint, like they're still acting. It's not like it cheapens their ability to make believe. Like
well,
they
and
still
that's
have to
where
be like, hey, this Wookiee's here.
And I think that's where it's
Like
like at the time it became so because it was such a new thing, right? Like being able to CGI
Yeah.
all that stuff was so new that you did have people like their eye lines aren't exactly right, or like they're really acting kind of stiff because they're not acting against anybody aside from like someone off screen just saying the lines flatly, you know? And like it makes sense why like some of the acting wasn't as great in the prequels just because the script arguably is not that good and like you know, they're not acting against anything. It's Obi-Wan talking to a Gleep Glop. He's just talking to an alien, nothing. And it's like he has to I mean, kudos to freaking Ian McGregor for doing that because he kicks ass doing it. But I mean, you hear other stories about like Ian McKellen breaking down on the set of The Hobbit because he's just alone, acting against nothing in a green room when he's supposed to be with 12 other people and a horde of goblins. And it's just like I can see how that can get really tough because you have to kind of fill gaps. You're stressing yourself out because you're like, I have to fill it out well. And it's like, you got to wonder, like, is this believable? Are people going to believe this? I don't believe it because I can't see it. Um, and I think that's like one of the things I like about the practical effects end is because you can get some cool shit. I think though that one of the things I wish they did was not rely so like this is 30 years in the future and we're still dicking around with like R2D2s and C3POs. That's like if I wanted to walk around with a cell phone from the 90s. Like we're not upgrading anything in these movies and it's really frustrating because it's like we why can't we see like an advancement here? You know? That's something that bothers me in Star Wars in general is that we're jumping around the timelines and shit doesn't get better or it doesn't get worse when except in the EU. I know I read some books where it's like technology is different or they make a point to tell you how it's not the same, but it's like the starships in 9 should be categorically better than the starships in 1 because like 50 years or whatever time have passed and or 70 years of time have passed and like shit just changes. But we're still, hanging out with C3PO and R2D2, who are the equivalent of a 1990s cell phone at this point when we're rocking like iPhone 30s. So it's like, what are we doing? But anyway, yeah. Flarex's comments up here. I've been talking over. I wasn't paying attention. Sorry about
Oh, no,
that.
you're good. No, you're good. Yeah, Flare X, I appreciate you hanging out with us, man.
Yeah, seriously.
Sticking around for this long. But yeah, that's where I see the sequel trilogy failing. They didn't do the world building that the originals did. They needed to build a plausible universe to walk in, not just toss you in and say, "Here you go." And
And I
that's
think
what they
that
did.
yeah, that's hitting the point I was trying to articulate. Like you nailed it better than me. Is just you delivered a new universe in like wrapped up in the universe of the old one and said, "Here you go." And you open the box and you're like, "Well, this isn't anything like the other one. What the hell?"
Yeah, they just
And you
kind
got to
of
build that.
they expect you to be happy with it. It's like, no, just because it has Star Wars written on it doesn't mean
Mhm.
it's good. And you can say it was a success all you want financially. That's fine. But if you're talking as a franchise and from standpoint from fans who are the only people that are going to be making you money,
Right.
you have burned everything. You've burned bridges from fans. You've burnt supermarkets and toy franchises, specifically Toys R Us, and you've helped make them collapse and helped them not make as good business because you come out with shit toys, shit characters. Nobody wants to buy these figures. You see them shit sitting on shelves all the time, and nobody buys them, and they've been sitting there forever. And if you watch like World Class Bullshitters does the toy videos, they go in the stores and they see all these Rose Ticos sitting on the shelf from 3 years ago. It's like, well, yeah, like they're terrible.
And then you got to I mean like that to me though is on like a whole other category I'm kind of curious about is like do kids play with toys like that anymore? I mean,
Yeah, they do.
I mean, like I see tons of kids they just have like iPads and shit. I'm just like
Eh,
kids
to
even
the
care? Like
to a
what's up?
degree, they still play with toys. My job, I have to work in the playroom every
Mm,
now and then, and I see the kids every day, regardless, because they walk by me.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and they're always playing with toys. Like if I have to go into the playroom real quick and
Mhm.
like get something from one of my coworkers or something, they're all playing. Like they all play with toys. They watch TV. They play video games. They do. There's well, from what I see at least, there's a good balance between all of it. Some of
Okay.
the kids even bring their own toys in, and it's like, oh, cool. Very rarely do
I'm
you see
always
a kid.
curious about.
Yeah, very rarely do you see a kid actually bringing an iPad or a tablet in, and
Well, I
usually
don't
those
think I'd
kids are
let
a
my
little.
kid bring a iPad or tablet
Usually
somewhere,
those
man.
kids are a little. But as far as toys, they all play with toys, and a
Yeah.
lot of them bring their own toys in. There's one kid that he brings like Lego figures in and some Pokemon stuff, and
Mm.
he's always bringing his Beyblades in. I'm just like,
Wow.
cool, yeah, that's still a thing.
Yeah, apparently. Jeez. But I guess like when it comes down to things like, I think again, Flex is over here, a financially successful stake in the heart. Totally.
Yeah,
Like, I think what you said though is a great thing that I wish. I think if you can get one thing out of this episode, everybody who's listening, just because it's Star Wars, just because it's Marvel, just because it's whatever franchise of the fucking times is going on, it doesn't mean it's a good movie. Like, yeah, but it's okay. It's okay if you like it, but just like it for what it is. Don't go, oh, it's a Star Wars movie, so I feel like I have to like it. I mean, there's tons of Star Wars out there. Like we're talking, we don't really like these three movies. That doesn't mean I hate Star Wars forever. That doesn't mean that me personally, I'm going to look at everything else coming out and go, oh, this is garbage. I mean, I'll dip my toe in and see if I like it. And if I don't, then I'm just not going to like it. But
yeah.
it's like,
Everybody needs to be the judge, like their own, like use your judgment on things.
but
Like
it's like the
actually, like think freely. Don't just give in just because it like
exactly
it's like oh it has like I love the new Harry Potter movies, but if you don't, that's
right.
fine. Just because it says Wizarding World of something doesn't mean you have to buy into it. Now,
Exactly.
from what I see, it's consistent. And
I'll say
knock
it
on
is
wood, they're
inconsistent.
the only
Yeah.
one. So they're the only franchise that has been consistently smart with their stuff. And J.K. Rowling still writes it. It's not like she has all these other writers do it for her,
Yeah. I could
and then
kind
she
of
just
wish she
marks off
didn't,
on it.
though. See, I don't find her to be a very good screenwriter. Like, there's a lot of things that just are my problem with some of the Fantastic Beasts movies, not to go too deep into it, but it's just like there are things in a book you can do. Like when you have lines, there's like Harry thought to himself XYZ, and you get kind of a depth in character. She does that really well. Like she'll do pages and pages of no actual talking, right? You can't do that in a movie unless you have a voiceover. And nowadays that's not really the thing to do. Or it can get really annoying if you do too much of it.
Unless you're in Deadpool.
Well, and see, it's things like that where you're like aping, what's it called, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off or something, where like he is breaking the fourth wall, looking at the camera and saying whatever.
Yeah.
You're not doing that in Fantastic Beasts. I'm sorry, if Fantastic Beasts start doing that, I'm turning it off and I'm not going to watch
Yeah,
it.
me too. Yeah, it's
But
gonna
it's
be a
like,
little weird.
but you run into the problem of like if you don't write a scene well enough to where like I can get that emotional or that thought kind of concept from them, then when they do something later, I'm going to question why the hell did they do that? And that's my problem with the Fantastic Beasts movies is it's sort of like there's a lot of unspoken stuff that clearly doesn't get that's maybe pretty specific and it doesn't get the attention it needs in the movie or the description it needs in the movie. And that's kind of where it falls flat for me. I think when she has people helping her write though, it does make things a little bit smoother because writing a movie is totally different than writing a book. I mean, you can do things in a book where you say this, and this happened, and it did this and this to the person. Whereas in a movie, you have to show it, and you have to show it in just the right way to get just the right effect that you wanted. But I think more to the point, just because these things are Harry Potter, I mean, the next Fantastic Beasts movie can be a piece of garbage. Just be critical of stuff. You don't have to, and I don't mean that in the way that people say it now, like, don't hate stuff
Exactly.
but just like don't hate stuff just straight up because it's you didn't like the other one or whatever but like be critical and be objective about it at first because like when I go into these movies nowadays I've noticed this a lot especially like in podcasting and just watching like a wider array of movies not all of them I like and then some of them I do is just that you learn to kind of appreciate like what they were trying to do. Like I can appreciate things they were trying to do in The Last Jedi. I don't think they executed them well, and I think ultimately it hurt them. But like I can see what they were trying to do, and sometimes that helps to like understand a movie and why it did what it did. And I mean, at the end of the day, just because it says Star Wars, just because it says Marvel, just because it says Wizarding World or Harry Potter or whatever, like doesn't mean you can't criticize it.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you can, but like it doesn't mean you have to hate it. It doesn't mean you have to like it. But like if you do like it for what it is. Don't like it for its franchise. And if you do hate it for what it is. Don't hate it because it like ruined every like I don't know. Like Star Wars Episode 8 should not ruin the other 6 to 7 movies for anybody because like fuck it, just don't watch it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to do with the Harry Potter ones just because there's no book to base it off of.
And I think
So
that's where it kind of
this is strictly
yeah,
her stories that she hasn't released.
right.
So maybe, I mean, if she puts out a book and it's like consistent, then cool. But if not, well, this is the way I think of it. This is basically the Fantastic Beast movies, though I think are really good and I think they age well. They're the Hobbit movies of Lord of the Rings. To what you know?
I would say they're maybe a little better than the Hobbit
Oh,
movie.
they're way better. And
I mean,
I used
in
to,
comparatively speaking, I think they are to Harry Potter a better version of The Hobbit is to Lord of the Rings, but it's also kind of hard because the Lord of the Rings is like Oscar winning movies. And I think all of them at least were nominated and
yeah.
at least one of them like swept the Oscar. I mean, those are
Oh, they're beautiful.
great movies and I hope to God they never remake them, but it's just like
Yeah, if they remake those, I'm gonna go on strike or something.
well, it's just I mean, they're doing that series, but it's like, you know, I'll maybe see how it is, but ultimately it's never going to be those
Well,
movies.
I'll share with you after the show, but it's
Okay.
there's some like news and they fired a lot of the writers and
Oh, really?
they fired the biggest token lore
Mhm.
guy on that show. And he worked on the Lord of the Rings movies and he's he's like a token expert and they fired him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, I mean, as far as this whole Star Wars thing, I don't think unless John Favreau and Filoni do TV shows, and I don't see it getting any better. And honestly, I don't think the show's going to get much better. Like they're going to go and it's going to go into the sequel trilogy.
And I think
So
that's
I
where
think
it's
season
fucked
one's going to
up,
be the
you
best
know?
season. I think that's going to be the gold standard for Star Wars TV show besides the Clone Wars. It's a live action, so it's a little different. But
Yeah.
this show was great.
Yeah.
I had a fun time with it.
I'm loving the show.
And there's references to the sequel trilogy that make me like roll my eyes, but it's nothing that like hinders me from liking the show at all. Because
And I think you kind of
you can
have to
take
have it, right? Because you know, whether you like it or not, these movies are part of that canon that is established. So you gotta, if you're gonna dabble, and this is where I think 7 start and 8 and 9 all sort of screwed itself is like you start dabbling in the old stuff, you reference it, now you're stuck, you're attached to it. You have to follow its rules. You make The Mandalorian takes place between 6 and 7, you're kind of having to follow both of them. You're keeping it separated enough to where you do what you want. But at the same time, when something is gonna start screwing around, I mean, this is like the Trek comment earlier is like they had to basically time travel away a whole series' worth of content because you'd be screwing with timelines. You can't just overwrite your movies with your TV show. But I mean, at the same time, it does make me kind of it feels a little cheap now, I guess is my problem. Is it feels like really tongue in cheek. Oh yeah, that's almost like the planet Jakku. It's like, ugh, okay, I get it. You're reminding me those movies happened. You didn't need
yeah, stuff
to.
like that. Like when they're on the ship, is the episode with Bill Burr where they have to break out the prisoner.
Yeah.
Like he's like, "Oh, your ship looks like a fucking Canto bike, like gambling slot machine." It's like, "Oh my god, did you really just say that?"
And I think with things like that, it's just like it comes in. I don't know. I don't know if I even like that stuff. If it was like, oh man, that looks like the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. It's like it just comes off as cheap or whatever. Make up a nonsense word. That's what George was doing in the first ones, right? It's like
Yeah, he
put
just
a
made
ton
up
of
like
nonsense junk. Make him say that. I don't
different
care what
lingo.
it is. Yeah, it's like, oh, that looks like a Cupinator Beetleborg from planet Tachyon 2 or something, like whatever, just a bunch of nonsense words. Make it that,
Yeah,
make it fun.
the comics they go and they say shit like that. Like instead of going like "ah son of a bitch," like they have a little phrase they say to each other in a
Yeah.
different language, and it's fine. And it's like, ah, cool. That's
Well, the
like
cool thing
that's
about
like
it
their
is I don't
thing.
have to show you. Like, I don't have to be like, oh, I need to show you what a Gleep Glop and Beetleborg from Tachyon 5 is. You don't care
Yeah,
because
you'd
you
have to
know whatever it
shoehorn anything
is,
like that. It's just
it
it
looks
is
like
what
your
it
ship.
is, and
That's
if you
fine.
ever do come across it,
You know what it looks like now because it looks like your
fine.
ship.
Like, I mean, yeah, like if there's like an episode later on and it's just like, oh hey, that's that. That's what it is. Like, yeah, okay, cool, and then just move on. Like, you don't have to. I mean, even if you wanted to, but you don't have to. I don't know. It's just there's so much shoehorning and forcing in the
And
new
that's the
Star Wars, and
problem.
it's so annoying. And people are like, "Oh, why don't you like these? They're such great movies." It's like, did you watch the same movie as me? Like, I don't think you did. Like, it's
Well, I think they're trying to put the cart before the horse. Like a lot of the things we've been talking about is like, oh yeah, we're trying to have, your ship looks like a blah 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 from blah 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 blah. I don't know what a blah 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 any of that is. I don't need to because I know that whatever you say it is, that's what your ship looks like. Now, if in a handful of episodes we go to blah 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 and I see a blah blah bloop, then I'm going to go, oh, I get the joke a little bit more now because it looks kind of like a ship. When you say that thing looks like this other thing that you better have seen because you better have watched this other movie
or read the book.
or read the book or whatever,
Yeah,
it becomes like, well, now I don't, now again, I'm alienated because what if I didn't watch 8? Or what if I'm only watching the show? Or what if I'm not really into Star Wars and I go, what is that? And the person I'm with doesn't say, oh, it's just something they made up. Instead, they say, oh, well, it was from this other movie and you had to watch it. Now I feel like, what else am I not understanding in this movie? What am I, or TV show or whatever? It's like, what am I not getting now? And the whole thing becomes like kind of an unknown. And no matter what's new or what's described, you still are going to be thinking, well, crap, what else is there that I'm missing? What is the guy next to me who's a big fan getting out of this that I'm not? And that sucks. Like that just really sucks. To do in any and like Star Wars isn't the only franchise that does it. Plenty of stuff does it, but it's like I don't know. It just feels kind of shitty because like a movie is something where people can all come together and watch this thing and they're gonna have different opinions. And that's fine. It's okay. I think people really need to get over, Flarex was pointing out, like, people get over like um they won't get over you saying something's negative, and there are people who say the same thing about things positive. I think we all just need to get over that. Like, it's okay to hate something, it's okay to like something. There's arguably maybe some reasons not to like things that are like questionable as far as character goes, but like, you know when you want to watch a movie's made, it's a piece of art. Everyone's going to interpret it differently, and if everybody's interpreting it the same exact way, you could probably argue it wasn't very good art. I mean, it's supposed to make you think. It's supposed to make you feel something. And if I'm watching Star Wars and the only thing I feel is alienated and confused and that
or a headache.
or a headache, it's just like, well, was it doing its job? Some people probably argue, yeah, sure, fine, it is, but I don't know. It's like, to me, I
Well,
want
what do you feel from this stuff though? Like, I don't feel it.
exactly, exactly.
It's like there's nothing to feel or really
Nostalgia.
relate. There's nothing to relate to.
I felt
Like,
like in
Luke's not the
7
same.
it was a hike on my nostalgia factor. It was trying to recapture the way I felt when I watched the first one, and it was a big deal because it was like, "Oh my god, I'm watching Star Wars in theaters as an adult." And it's like,
Yeah,
this I never thought would happen, and then it happened like 6 more times or whatever, and it was just kind of like
yeah. Well, me
itching
and you,
out, and yeah.
saw The Force Awakens together a couple times,
Yeah.
and we saw it, and we're just like, all right, we need to wrap our heads around this movie. Like, what is happening?
But it was one of those things where when you watch it and you are like, "Oh my god, this movie is setting up all this cool shit." But then it didn't. And it was like, "Oh, well,
Yeah,
that sort of stinks." I mean, 7, if you watch 7 and you don't watch 8 and 9, or you haven't watched 8 and 9, you're gonna watch 7 and you're gonna go, "Whoa, this is setting up some potentially really cool mysteries." And then you watch 8, which kinda, like, throws some out the window and sets up like, the thing that 8 does kinda set up is like, okay, what does an off the rails empire led by Kylo Ren look like? Like, what does him going
nothing.
batshit crazy look like? And then in 9, instead of just like, "Look, let's just double down and do it. They're like, no, 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 no. We got to backtrack and act almost like 8 didn't happen, and it just became nothing. And I'm like, you were better off just do your sequel to 8 instead of doing a sequel to 7.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we saw The Last Jedi together, right?
No,
Yeah.
I saw it with my
Yeah, we saw it
mom.
together.
I might have saw it a second time. No, I don't think I
You
saw
saw
it.
it the first time you saw it with.
I saw it in California. I'm
Never
pretty
mind.
sure.
That was the Force Awakens that we saw together. Okay.
Yeah, we saw the Force Awakens.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I saw.
I thought
Yeah,
we saw Last Jedi as well, but we didn't. You
no,
weren't.
I
Yeah,
saw
you
Last
weren't here for
Jedi.
that.
Yeah, I moved by that point. But yeah, I mean, and it's just those are the things that are bothering me. Is it's like even if you screw the pooch and your movie takes a left turn you didn't want it to take, like, dude, you're
Yeah.
stuck with it. You wrote that's your roadmap. You're stuck with that roadmap. You can't just double back and act like a movie didn't happen because now it doesn't make any sense.
What's funny is like when we went, it was like a lot of the neighborhood guys, and we went to go see it, and I walked out of that theater, man, and I was like numb. I was like kind of confused. Like, what did I just watch? Like, I don't like. I've never walked out of a. I've never walked out of a movie and at the moment was just like so in awe of what I watched. Like I didn't have an opinion at the moment because I was
of
just so
eight.
like yeah, I was just so overwhelmingly like what?
Yeah, I remember
I
walking
was
out
like,
and
what the
just going
fuck?
like, I don't know if I liked that. Like that was my thought was like, I really don't know if I liked that
And
movie.
wasn't that weird as shit to like The Force Awakens, I wasn't like in love with it.
Yeah.
There was a couple things that I was like, oh cool, Han Solo's back. But
Yeah, yeah.
you look at this movie and you're like, uh I didn't like this Star Wars movie. What's happening? Like it was
Well, it
just
was one
so.
of those like slow burns of dislike because I was like, I don't know if I really cared for that. And then I was like thinking about it and I was like, a lot of stuff in that movie, like, I didn't like what happened, but I'm trying to be like objective and be like, but did I, do I not like this movie because I didn't like what happened, or do I not like this movie because I don't think it was good? Those being like two categorically different things. Or it's just like, you could not like the way, you know, 3 ends because it's like the Empire wins, but you can like 3. To use another Star Wars example. As far as this one went, I was just sort of like, I don't think I really cared for it because there were things I didn't feel like made a lot of sense or just were like weird things to spend so much time on. Like, no, I don't want to open a can of worms with it. I don't really feel like talking about it much, but like the whole Canto Bite scene is just like, regardless of how you feel about it, it was really long and it didn't do as much as it could. It was cool, I think, to see like a different side of the galaxy because you do get kind of sick of this like insular, like, okay, we're either looking at the Empire or we're looking at the Rebels. We're not seeing like anybody else in the galaxy do anything else. And it's kind of like, it gets really flat. So getting that like extra dimension was kind of cool, but I don't know. It was just sort of like it kind of kept going and I kind of would forget about other parts of the movie. And eventually it felt like it was just trying to fill time for the slow speed space chase, which also seemed like a weird thing. Like a lot of those things just seemed like weird things to have. And to validate them, they made up a lot of new rules, like the fuel thing and stuff like that,
Yeah.
which I'm sorry, they do make a point to say in episode 1, fuel is a thing. So I'm sorry that if people get all hung up on the fuel thing, they say fuel's in episode 1. It's the whole reason they go to Tatooine. Like the hyperdrive is leaking fuel. They get whatever the hell that means, who cares? But that's the reason they land
But
there.
you're gonna base the whole entire. You can't base the whole movie off of that though. Like that's just a
Agreed.
part in it, and it's like, well, and here's the thing: fuel's not that big a deal in Star Wars. Like it was more of the hyperdrive than anything. Like
Well, yeah. And
I
I
mean,
think it's
the thing was shot, so they had to go and get a new one.
mhm.
But in 8, it's like, oh, we're running out of fuel, and we can only go the same speed as the other ship, and we're in a chase with it. It's like, no, 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 that's not how it works.
I mean, that's not I don't think that's how physics works, right? Like
That's
if
not
you
how all this shit works. And their shots, like shooting at the resistance ship, we're only barely hitting it or barely making it. It's like, no, that's not how that's going to work in Star Wars. That's not. You can say whatever you want about the legitimate logics and physics of space today, like now, but Star Wars, it's fucking different. So
Well, it's a it's a made up universe with its made up rules. That's fine. But the
that's what I'm
thing I
saying.
didn't like about it was that you have
But it went against its rules. It's like it went against all the rules.
well, the thing is like up until that point, you never had rules like for this. No one ever bothered to, and no one really ever cared, because it's like, okay, they fly their spaceships around. Like this isn't supposed to be that in depth thought. It's
Well, if
not
you
like
wanted to
in
kamikaze fucking light speed ships at people, you would have been doing it all along and just putting droids in instead of
And see,
people.
this is the problem, right? Is like that
And
movie
you just
presented a ton of stuff that was like, okay, here we're going to rule spam you with a bunch of things that are like to set up sort of how this works. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If this is how it works, then like, why didn't these things happen in the last 7 movies? Like, you didn't have this problem now. And it's like, well, hell, what they really should have done was they should have had Solo come out before 8 because Solo makes the fuel thing make more sense. And it doesn't disrupt the movie so much. It's just like we have to move this starship fuel. This is a thing. And people kind of just go, okay, cool. If that happened before 8, it would have been fine. But because we have to have our stupid special 30-year movie timeline crap, these are the movies are coming out in order for the next 30 years. We can't possibly have 2 story movies come out before a mainline movie. So fuck it. Even though when you watch Solo, you're like, oh, fuel is a big deal. And like it can do these things. And it doesn't, it's not such a hinge in the movie to where like everything's reliant on it, but it's also like a thing that we're going to put up front and center. That what 8 did was it just added a bunch of rules that they had to follow that limited everything so that they could achieve this crap like the hyperspace attack and to make it like, oh, they're just far enough to where we can leave these characters for half an hour and then come back and they're still in the same boat. And it's just like, well, why not? This is dumb because it almost comes off to me. The worst part about all of them is they come off as if their main goal, Disney, I mean's main goal, was to make a super cut of all 3 of the movies as one movie because they're all, I don't know if you noticed, but like they're all set up to be almost one right after the other, like immediately after the other or within a few days or something. I mean, 9 is 9. It's all messed up. So who knows when it takes place, but like 8 didn't have to start right after 7.
no.
I mean, but they made it. They forced it to. And I'm like, this is kind of silly. Like, they escaped. Make it done. It's just like 4. They got away from Yavin and everybody's on Hoth now. I mean, honestly, this is my complaint about the Jurassic World movies. Just if you're gonna redo the first one, just redo them all. Just fuck it. You're gonna make money. If that's your goal is to make money, just redo them all. Because like I would have rather watched a rehash of 4, 5, and 6 than what we got. And so I feel about Jurassic World too. I'm like, just make it the Lost World. Just make that second one the Lost World. You started that way and then you didn't, and I don't like it.
That Fallen Kingdom movie sucks.
Do what?
That fall,
I hate Fallen Kingdom. I
it's
think
so fucking bad.
we rewatched a lot of those Jurassic World movies the other day, and it was just like, or the Jurassic Park movies in general. And just by the time we got to Fallen Kingdom, like it got late, and they're like, "Let's go to bed." And I'm just like, "Do you want to finish this?" And it's like, "No, I know what happens. I don't care." Like it's just like I don't care because
It's
it
so
doesn't.
bad, and you like there's a lot in. We'll talk more about Jurassic Park later. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
we can always just save that
we're
for
gonna get
another time.
way into that, but
Yeah.
no,
As an
Star Wars.
example, it's an example of a movie that could
Yeah,
totally have just
yeah.
repeated itself and people would have saw it. I would have at least enjoyed it more than what I got.
Hmm.
And Star Wars is, I don't want them to say I want them to just rehash the movies instead of writing something new, but like you didn't have to do this whole like, oh, this could be like a mega cut of like a 9-hour movie and they're all together. And it's like, well, no, at the very least, because these are all directed by different people, or were going to be directed by different people and would therefore have very different vibes to them. But I mean, it just seemed like it did so much bending over backwards to make that
Yeah,
setup happen that it kind of shot the rest of the movie in the foot. I don't know.
Well,
It
here
would
we
have
are.
made yeah.
Here we are, almost 8 years later from Disney purchasing Lucasfilm, and all the Star Wars movies you need are one, two, three, four, five, six.
And I guess Rogue
Still,
One, if you feel like
that's it.
filling that in.
That's optional. I choose not to, just because it's just
I like that
not
one
George Lucas.
personally. I don't.
So
It doesn't bother me. Like I
now
like
Gareth
that one.
Edwards was good though. I appreciate Gareth Edwards. I respect him because he didn't do anything. He didn't force anything.
Well, and the nice thing about Rogue One was he can't. There was nothing to force. You're like firmly right there in between these. This you're at this event. Like we're going to show you how this event happened. And to me, that is that goes back to what we talk about the EU. Is like here's this one-off line event that we talked about. Let's make a story about it. And they made a pretty good story about it because you're stuck in this is what this is how it starts, this is how it has to end, and here's what happens in between. That's the thing they didn't do with the sequel. That's what everybody agrees. They
It
didn't
was
do with
very
the sequels.
it was very respectfully done.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like insulting like the sequel movies.
No,
Like
and you get
this was straight up just like you said, this is what
Mhm.
happened. Here are these characters. They all have
Right.
something unique about them. It's cool. There's no forced like Ray Mary Sue thing. It's like there's Jen Urso. She's some bitch that whose dad like designed the Death Star. Well, cool. Is she like super OP? No, she's just there and she tries to do what she needs to as a team and win. And it was a team effort. It wasn't like one chick could just. In reality, Ray could single-handedly take on the whole Empire and or First Order, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and win. And essentially, Episode 9 was just her. That's all you like. That's literally like if it was just her in the movie, nothing would change between Finn, Poe, and the other guys. It was just her.
And
So
arguably, the more we think about this kind of thing, and that, I mean, as far as Rogue One is concerned, I think it worked because it was like, here is a character who is Jyn Erso, who has flaws, who doesn't want to do this or whatever, and like ends up doing it, and they have the problems along the way, and they have this team of people who each one is unique. I guess the other thing I'll say about that movie is I liked how the remains of the Jedi kind of became a resource. Like, I don't know, maybe other people disagree, but I kind of like the whole Kyber crystal, like it turning basically the Death Star into a giant lightsaber shooting super gun seemed kind of crazy awesome to me. Um, but it also takes the Jedi and it doesn't just go, okay, we wiped the Jedi from existence. It's like, no, we took their shit. The thing that like really made them Jedi, their lightsabers, those crystals, and we turned it into like a horrible death machine. And I think that adds a layer to just the Death Star and the Empire in general. That's like, holy shit, that's some dark stuff. Like that's really heavy. Is like you took the Jedi and you weaponized the Jedi like you couldn't do before, and now you don't have anybody in the way. And then it goes on to the fourth movie, fifth, sixth. I think the thing I almost would have liked to see better in these sequel movies, and they wouldn't do it because again, you got kids watching them and it just wouldn't hit right. But it'd be so cool if these movies were just a tragedy. Like it's just a tragedy of Rey. Like she figures out, she starts out on Jakku, and like she maybe has like broom kid level force abilities or something like that. She kind of gets that like the Jedi or something you don't really, start yelling about or something. She's not really great with these, but she can kind of do some, I can pull shit, I can push shit, whatever. Somebody crashes, they start teaching. It's like Luke Skywalker. If you want to force Luke Skywalker, say like Luke Skywalker crashes on Jakku and teaches her kind of how to be a Jedi. Then Luke dies and she gets off Jakku because of some event. Next movie is she's, meets new people. You just kind of have like, and this is maybe where it's better as a TV show, but it's like have her develop over time, but just make it, if you're going to make it about her, don't include anybody else. Just have it be her going through this story. She's losing everybody she comes in contact with, but at the end of the whole series, make it to where she has this decision to make. She's now powerful, she can do shit because she's learned and whatever, I don't know, do whatever you want to do to fill that gap. But it's like by the end of the movies, she has this similar decision of like, I can either use all these powers for evil because look at all the people I've lost, life sucks, I should get what I want out of it, or I can just be a good person like Luke and Leia and everybody's taught me to be, and then ultimately make her a good person. She goes on with her life. That's fine. I just think it's like you again are forcing so many different people into this movie that you kind of only want it to be about Rey. And it needs to only be about Rey because it doesn't work because you have a ton of other people taking up the screen. And it's just like, maybe if they weren't there, I could just focus on this one character and like the people around them. And I do have to admit, it was sort of distracting to see the old Star Wars characters in there. Not that they didn't need to be, but the fact that they played such major roles is kind of like, well, I mean, this feels like it went from cameo to main character. And, your first movie was supposed to be like a passing of the torch. And then it just kind of, they hung around the whole time.
It
So,
was they didn't even pass any torches along. It was just like, here's Ray. She has no idea what she is, who she is, just some bitch that lives on a desert. Oh, and also she's a fucking Jedi Master and defeats a Sith Lord the first movie. Okay, not a problem at all. Like
it's not in the first movie though. It's not because you have two more movies to explain what the fuck just happened, and then you don't. And that's the
But just
problem.
the thing is, it's just like logically, and in Star Wars, that should not happen. Like I know Darth Bane was very well. Here's the thing, Darth Bane, but they didn't keep that character around, so
But see, I
not
think
a thing
again,
anymore.
I
But like
think like you
he
could
was
do it.
powerful. He was powerful right from the get go. But that's just one Sith Lord out of most of Star Wars.
Right.
Now
And I
her,
mean,
it's like
this is where I stand by my whole I think Rey should have turned evil because then it doesn't matter that, she's your hero and you have the Mary Sue angle and all that. It's because like she's evil, so we're going to stop her. Like the thing about it all is that Kylo Ren is the tragic character, Kylo Ben Solo, whatever. He's the one with the arc. Whereas like Rey doesn't really have an arc other than like learning about the fact that she's Jedi. Like that's kind of it.
and Ben Solo's arc's complete dog shit too. So I mean,
Honestly, though, but like it's dog shit because it's in the background, like, and because he's redeemed. It needed to end where he fucking dies, but in my opinion. But my whole thing is like
and
you
not
have
make out
your
with Ray.
entire. Yeah, well, yeah, that was just weird. That was just weird, just weird. But the point of the whole thing I was getting at is just like you have your tragic character is the villain who ultimately can't win, and like your hero is more or less static, and that kind of stinks. I mean, I'll give props to Daisy Ridley. Like she brings a lot to a character that otherwise doesn't do anything. Like she does emote, she does react. Like she's not just like flatlining these lines because let's be real, like Ray as a written character is not doing a whole lot on an emotional scale.
She
So
was
like
pretty bad.
props, I don't know, I give props to Daisy Ridley because I think she brought a lot to that role. Like I mean, I can only imagine somebody else doing it and it would just be not like, I mean, if you think it's bad the way it was, like just imagine somebody else. And it's like, she did best with what she could, and I give everybody that. The prequels get the same kind of credit. These people did the best of what they could. I mean, Natalie Portman's an amazing actress. Padme Amidala in those movies sucks. Like she just, it's not, the things she says are absurd, and it's just like a lot of it is a script problem.
Yeah,
But I mean, and that's the same way with these. It's too much going on, and you're not doing enough with the characters you should, and you know all that kind of crap. But at the end of the day, you had a character that was tragic. You could have focused on them. I mean, could you imagine a whole sequel trilogy from the bad guy's perspective, and it's the bad guys say turning good, you know, or like I don't know. You could do a lot of creative stuff. I think with Star Wars, and maybe they thought they were taking risks and they weren't. And I think if you're gonna do that, be experimental, take a risk with it. Star Wars is Star Wars. These movies made money anyway, and instead of shooting them in the foot, do something new. I don't
yeah.
know.
There's a way to like take risks and challenge and actually be creative and not shit on people and not shit on the fans and not shit on the franchise. There's a way of going about it with being creative and kind of taking that leap of faith with something in the franchise that hasn't been done before. But it also, like we said earlier, it can't go against it can't go against the lore and the rules and the laws that
Mhm.
have been made. But you can still, like I said, take risks. But it just doesn't happen, and people don't understand that. And you have to be kind of in the middle and neutral. You can't just lean one way too far and want to change everything drastically, and you can't just keep everything the exact same. Like
And
you
yeah,
can. I prefer it to stay the same personally, just because we had everything we needed.
and I
Now,
think that's
new
where
things
you
are
don't.
bonus things, but if we had everything we needed, we just needed somebody to put it in there and put it on paper and to make it.
I think the goal really that people, with this whole word, like the word deconstruction and all that stuff, I think one of the big things that is a problem is just this need to overhaul stuff. And I mean, you don't
Yeah,
have to just up, it's another Star Wars. You don't have to rehash things. I'm not saying you have to rehash things, but like you're in a universe that has had books and movies and TV shows and things like that built on it. And yeah, okay, you don't have to deal with the books. I mean, books have always been that one thing where like, yeah, you can kind of like not disregard them, but you don't have to touch them. But I think with this, it's like the reason I like the story movies, the reason The Mandalorian works so well is because it's just let's tell a story in the universe, in this case of Star Wars. I don't need a galactic overhaul of what Star Wars is. That's been established. And, at this point, honestly, I could care less about learning any more about it as far as to see, but who
yeah,
cares? And I think that's one of the reasons why Mandalorian works. It's the reasons why the story movies work, and it's the reason why like Fallen Order works is because it's just in the universe. We're going to tell a story, and these more impactful things exist, like the Empire and Luke Skywalker and all other stuff. Like they're there, they're known. You can't ignore that they exist. But like I don't need to overhaul anything because my story doesn't matter. The Mandalorian doesn't do anything to the greater galactic politics of the galaxy. Like, whatever. It's just about this dude who's a Star Wars dude doing Star Wars things in the Star Wars galaxy. I don't need
exactly.
it to be I don't need it to be exactly like the way it felt watching the originals. I don't need to be like the way I watch the prequels. It can be new and it can be like the Mandalorian, like this kind of gritty, like we're killing people kind of type thing. We're not just like shooting robots. We're like killing people. We're incinerating Jawas in this movie. And it's like, that's fine. Tell your unique story through this lens. But when you start trying to like tear up the rules, what little there are put in place, that's where you start losing it because it's not Star Wars anymore in the sense of the setting. Like it starts to become like you have your lightsabers, you have your names and things, but you've changed the rules of the universe. And that's where it's like, unless you do something again, like the Trek movies, where it's like, we're going to go back in time and we're just going to like reset everything. It's cheap as hell, but at least you explain it. If you're just like doing something for the sake of doing something and you're like, no one's ever talked about it before. So we're going to talk about it now and make it an integral plot point. It's just like, I think you need to build it up. And I think that's where this TV direction is where they're going to have the success is they're able to take the time and build up these world building things because look at the originals, look at even the prequels. We're not doing world building. We're just we're doing world building in the sense that it's a movie and you have to, but we're not like this is what it's like on this arbitrary planet somewhere. A lot of that came from the EU, and that
Yeah.
was years and years and years of build up. That's fine. You can do that. In this case, do it with a TV show because you're doing all pretty okay so far. I mean, as long as you don't start going too deep into like, I'm going to start intersecting the Mandalorian with other things and changing the game, it's like, tell your story through that. I mean, and that's where I think you need this background information to flesh out your new universe. And who knows, maybe in the 20, 30 years it took for the EU to do stuff, maybe like these sequel movies will seem a lot better with all this extra stuff that happens over time. Maybe they'll seem like more reasonable. It'll make more sense or something after, 4 seasons of The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan series and all this other stuff. Who knows? Maybe, I mean, that's what, to me, that's what Clone Wars did for the prequels. Was
I
once I
think,
watched Clone Wars, it was like, whoa, watching the prequels is all new because I understand a lot more that's going on. So who knows? Maybe it'll fix some stuff. I don't think it'll fix everything, but I think it'll do nothing but help.
well, honestly, we I mean, I think I can speak for you that me and you liked the prequels when they were released. Like we
Oh
didn't
yeah.
need we
Find me
did
a kid that didn't. Jesus.
yeah, there's this new like this newness to it, and it was
Right.
fun.
It looked
And
pretty,
it
and I mean
expanded
that's
Star
cool.
Wars a lot. And I mean, adding extra stuff in the Clone Wars was cool, but it wasn't like really necessary. You didn't need it, but it helped. It was cool. But
And that's what I'm talking about.
with these sequel
Exactly.
movies, you need a lot to explain why the fuck this stuff's happening. Because I mean, you don't need third party media to explain, the OT. You
And I
don't
think
need
that's where you're
third
putting the
party
cart
media.
before the horse, right?
Yeah,
Is
you don't
you
need it to.
having it.
Yeah, you don't need it for the prequels. You don't need it for the OT. You
Mm-mm.
sure as shit need it for the sequel trilogy, though.
And that's I think that's the cart before the horse, and that's the thing. They're trying to set themselves up for people to buy this stuff, to purchase this other media, which it's like the reason it worked with the Clone Wars, the reason it worked with shit, even the Star Wars holiday special was because those things were such a big hit in and of themselves. They were interesting. People felt satisfied, but at the same time, to get more of a good thing, people are kind of cool with that. And when you're setting it up to where you're only getting it's like those video games that come out and they're only half baked, right? And you got to wait for all the DLC to come out for them to be actual full games. It's the same
Battlefront.
premise. Yeah, well, yeah, there you go. Perfect example is another property from them. But it's like kind of done. It's a movie, but if you have questions that are integral plot questions, well, you got to read this book, as opposed to like me going, well, where did Luke get that other lightsaber in 6? And it's like, yeah, there's deleted scenes and shit, but it's like, I mean, it doesn't
He made
matter.
it. Essentially,
Yeah,
all you got to
but
be
it's
like,
like, where
he
do you
made
get the
it.
parts? Where do you get the things? It's like at the end of the day, who gives a shit? It's just he has
That
a new lightsaber
exactly.
and continue on with the lives.
It's like
You could
showing
write
how
a
Han
book.
Solo got his blaster or his name. It's like you didn't need
And
to
those were
show
the
that.
things I didn't like about Solo. Was it's like I don't. I mean, but they're the things that like didn't kill it for me, I guess, because it
If
was
you're
like,
gonna,
oh, Han Solo. I'm like, well, this is just cheesy. I mean, it doesn't
if you're
make me
gonna,
mad,
if
but
you're
it's
gonna
like, who cares?
explain his name, actually have a compelling backstory and go into detail about it. Don't make it just be this one line and it's like that it.
Well, I mean,
That's it.
like, I
Seriously,
guess it was
like
stuff that just didn't feel like I needed it to be explained. So, like, the last name, I never thought twice about why his last name was Solo. I was like, that's just
exactly.
his name. With the blaster, I was like, I never put this as like an iconic Han Solo thing so much as it was just the gun that he uses in the movie. Like,
Well,
for him to
like
like get it, I
yeah,
was like, who cares? I mean,
that's
for
a
all I know, he
blaster
could've
in
just
the
bought it.
that's just a blaster in Star Wars. Like you play video games and you can use that because it's just a universal model.
Mm-hmm.
Like people just use it. Now maybe his was a little bit different. Maybe he customized it a little bit, but that's not something you have to establish. Like he just carries a DL-44. Maybe he put a custom trigger on it. Maybe he put a custom something on it. But
But at the end of the day, I
you
don't
don't have to
care.
go into yeah,
Like, I
exactly.
just
Who
don't
gives a shit?
care. Someone
That could
might, and that's fine, but I
that can be
don't, and
for
I
a
don't
comic
need.
book or something.
Yeah, I mean,
You
at the
don't
end of the
have to
day,
go.
I just don't. It doesn't. I don't. I guess I don't have to have it slapped in the face.
Yeah,
Is my thing. Is I don't need to have it up front presented. Like, you ever wonder where he got his blaster?
and
No. Well, here's where. And it's like, oh,
these new
okay.
movies treat you like you're stupid. It's like I don't
Well, and that's my complaint with a
care
lot of these franchise things that are happening, and it's not just Star
in
Wars.
general.
It's just that, like, okay, I can't. And I mean, this is where like I've been watching like some older movies lately, and it's like they leave a lot. They do a lot where it's like visual, or they say it in a way where they're talking to each other. They're not data dumping this stuff. I mean, it's like I was saying about Back to the Future, right? They set up a lot of the shit to where it's like scenes where they're like in the third one, they're like, "Oh, make sure you grab the hoverboard." Okay, cool, I got it. And like we don't see the hoverboard till the end of the movie when it's needed, as opposed to like, "What is this thing?" "Oh, it is a hoverboard. I got it in the last movie and it does this cool stuff." Blah 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 blah. And setting up the gun in the first act so you can see it go off in the third act, but I'm smacking you in the face with the gun the entire time. It's just like, why? Like, why Why can't you just let it be? Oh, hey, don't forget that thing. Okay, cool, thanks. And then it's gone. Like you don't have to sit there on it. And a lot of these movies are holding your hand and dragging you through. And it's just like, it doesn't make me think. It just makes me watch. And I'm just like, oh, cool. Look, pretty colors, look, pretty lights. I don't feel any kind of stimulation from this anymore. I don't really want to go see it. I mean, I think like it's like these Marvel movies. I mean, I'll probably only go start seeing them if I really like the hero or something. I mean, with this
Yeah,
like
like
Eternals thing coming out, I don't care.
they don't want
Like,
you thinking for yourself. They want to like think for you.
well, it's not even that. It's just like they don't want you to have to think.
Ex-
It's like they want you to just hear, where you're being
Accept it.
spoon fed. Here it is. It's not even. I don't even think it's like that nefarious as much as it's just like, here's the movie. Like this is
Well,
what
with
we
Star
want you
Wars, that
to.
is.
Well, I think with the Star Wars, it's just the same thing, but it doesn't work because you have this other junk. The difference, and I think this is where all these other movies are failing, is like with Marvel, it's pretty much from the get go kind of been this we're long, slow burning, this expanded thing. So everything we're doing is methodical. When it comes to Star Wars, you don't have that. Like there are so many like contradictions just within itself because it was never designed to do this in the same sense. Whereas like now it's like we're going to try to make it like the Marvel movies. If we make everything like Marvel movies, we'll make tons and tons of money. And it's like you're not trying to tell a story, you're trying to make money, and that's where it boils down. And you wind up with that problem. And we can beat it to death all day, but you know, that's my issue. Is it's just I want to be able to watch a movie and either draw my own opinions or like not expect things to happen.
Yeah.
Um, whereas like when you show me you show me the thing that's going to save the day and you kind of keep being is and then oh look the end of the movie it saved the day. Cool, you're taking the first act gun that has to go off in the third act like way too heavily and you're making the movie about the gun, not about the people, and that's the problem. But anyway,
Yeah. That, listen, I mean, we could go on and on all day about this
uh,
stuff, but I mean, in the end, like, we see what's happening with Star Wars, and quite frankly, it sucks. I
I don't
mean,
know,
now
I personally think it's a mixed bag. Yeah.
The Mandalorian is by far like the coolest thing to come out in the last almost 8 years, really. I mean,
Yeah, I think that's an act. I think it would be my favorite thing to come out in the last 8 years for sure.
if they started out with it, shit. I mean, that's that would have been
It'd been
super, super
interesting.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it would have been before all of the sequel trilogy stuff. So it would have literally just been on its own. Here you go. Like,
Yeah.
here's after post. This is post Return of the Jedi with a Mandalorian. Have fun with it. It's like, oh, no way. Cool. Like, I would have been all over it.
And it'd be great because you're building it like the books were, right? Six ended,
Yeah.
let's write what happens next. And like, let's just do this slow burn of a thing. And it becomes that as opposed to like Flare X has said, making a world, throwing you into it, saying go. When it's not the same, you need to find your footing. Okay, what's changed in the last 30 years? Well, some has, some hasn't. And you don't really figure it out until ever. I don't really think you really clearly get a bead on like what the world is. So
Yeah. It, it's one of these things where I'm done with it.
mm,
But if the Mandalorian keeps doing what it does good, I'll keep watching it. But
I think
once you
I
start
think that's the
fucking it up,
direction
I'm
they're
done.
going, right? Is like they're like, let's take this and we're gonna just focus on the TV because it's widely well like well received. Everybody seems to like it. And I think that's the direction this needs to go. So I think like, I'm not done with it because I'm enjoying what I'm seeing now. And, I was never really done with it just because it was like, look, I don't like this, but maybe then I'll give the next thing a try because maybe it'll be different. And this was, and I'm glad I watched it. But I think they're definitely going to slow down with a lot of this stuff because it's just not a good this is the problem I have with the Marvel movies. You're beating me over the head with 3 of these fucking things a year. I don't want to watch them. I'm burnt out. Like after Endgame, I was kind of like, do I even really want to go see this Spider-Man movie? And I did, and I don't regret it, but it wasn't great. And I was just kind of like, who cares? I'm just kind of over it. You know, I'm over the franchises being 6 times a year thing. Not that I'm only ever going to watch indie movies or something, but it's just like, you know, slow it down. These movies used to take like these Back to the Future movies. I think they're like, geez, they're like 5 years apart or something like that, or 3 or 4.
Star Wars used to be
You
like
know?
2, 3 years apart.
Right. It was like
Used to
77's 81, I think was the last one.
80 and then 83
83. Yeah. So
and
yeah,
then
81, 83. You
and
have a
then
couple of
99 to
years.
2001 to 2005.
Right. And
So
it's
there's
like,
time in between to speculate, have fun, play video games, read books, collect toys and action figures.
well, not even that.
And
Like from a movie writing perspective, there's time to write your movie.
well, that's what
Like
I'm
you don't
saying.
have to have it all done. Like just
Yeah.
write it over time and you're
It takes,
fine.
yeah, great things like that take time. You can't just be like, all right, there's a farm girl and she beats Professor Snape in a lightsaber fight. You're like, what?
Well, I
Okay.
think it's like you write your movie and you're like, okay, I have 7 done. Awesome. We're gonna do 2 more of these next year. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I just finished 7. I'm not 100% sure where I want to take this story yet, but it seems like it has a direction. It's like, well, don't worry about that. We'll get someone else to come in and figure that
It should
out.
be
It's like,
it should be planned out from the get-go, but it takes time to actually make it. And if you need to make adjustments and changes, do it. Ryan
right.
Johnson made The Last Jedi on a first draft.
And then
That was a first.
And then you have when Carrie Fisher died, they didn't rewrite 9.
Well,
And it's like,
they didn't kill her in The Last Jedi, and they had over a
right,
year to
but they
until they
could have.
released it.
It would have been a fine death in 8. And when it happened, I was like, oh wow, that's crazy. Like I guess we
Yeah,
rewrote this. The big problem in 9 is they had plenty of time to redo it. They just didn't. And it's like, well, you made your entire story hinge on a character whose actress is dead.
yeah,
Like, I'm sorry, but stop abusing this like let's in town tuning shit and like make her CGI. Like I hate that. Like it's fine in these like one-off things, but it's like I don't need a main character doing this.
yeah. And you have this huge statement like, yeah, she's not going to be in the new movie. We're taking her out. We're not putting her in there.
But you
We're
are
just,
because your entire plot
yeah.
hinges on it, and that's
And
your own fault for not rewriting your damn movie.
it's like, yeah, no, you're lying, Kathleen. She's actually going to be in it. And you also lied to her brother about it as well. And brother's like, no, she's not going to be in it. Oh, well, guess she fucking is. Like,
hmm Yeah,
it's,
I think in the end it's just you're not thinking about it and you're not taking the time you need. And I think a lot of that problem comes from the success of the Marvel movies is you were able to put 3 of these out because your 3 movies don't really touch each other and you just need to have the character you can film them all like at the same time or whatever, right?
yeah,
And then you can release them all in the order you want to release them, and that's fine. Like you have also thought these out, you've written them over a span of time. With Star Wars, you kind of ran into the problem of we're going to churn these out just as fast as the Marvel movies, and we'll be like making tons of money a year. And it's like just with all movies, just take your damn
yeah.
time. Like write the thing out, draft it a couple times, get something good, then put it out.
If I was
Because
to do a trilogy of any sorts, I would film it all. I would take a whole entire year just for filming or whatever, so you can get all these movies done, and then you can release them in order. So it helps for pre-planning aspects. It helps getting everything done at once, so you don't have to come back later on and spend even more money on travel and weird mishaps. You can do it all right there. It helps continuity with the characters and the actors with their age and their costumes and everything. So everything's done right there. You don't have to wait 2 years and then reference back the pictures. You can just be like, all right, this is what you looked like last week. You're going to continue to look like this. Boom, get it done. And you don't waste anything. I mean, and all you got is time for um, production and editing and marketing and getting toys and whatever out there.
I think you just gotta like you have to just
It also helps the
make your
story
spot.
because you're
Like you
doing it
just
all
have
at
to make
once.
your you don't but like writing a movie or having a movie is not all filming it, right? Like so you have you have a good time of filming, but by that point your story needs to be solid. Like
Yeah.
all you're doing when you're filming is having your actors do it. And any changes that happen during that should hopefully your aim should be for them to be minimal.
Yeah. And the whole like filming it all at once, that would help the story thing because you can't film 3 movies in the
But
span
see,
of a year and
that's where
not
I
have
would
this.
disagree.
Like, you
That's where I
have
would
to have it all planned. So if you got it all planned, then you could do that, and then therefore it would be easier.
But see, like that's where I gotta disagree because again, look at Star Wars. Like it was 2 to 3 years between each movie. They didn't film them all at once. I mean, they didn't even think they were gonna get sequels. George Lucas just had kind of a idea ready to go, right? And then he works
Yeah,
with everybody and they make something. What I'm saying is you need to take your time to like if you are presented like nowadays, which I guess maybe that wasn't as big I mean, it wasn't as big a thing back then of like, we're gonna let you make 3 movies of this. It's like, well, no, we're going to sign you on for like a 4 picture deal, but it's not necessarily going to be the same movie in sequence. It's just going to
yeah,
be you direct 4 movies. Oh, look, your first one was a hit. Let's make a sequel to it. With these today, it's like we're going to make, you know, you're going to make 3 Star Wars movies, and we want you guys to make these 3 Star Wars movies. Okay, first thing you're going to do, figure out what the hell the beginning is going to look like and what the end is going to look like. And then you have to figure out how do you get from episode seven's beginning to episode nine's end? Like, what is your arc? And the arc was, it looks like, um, Ray is Luke in the first one. In four, she's kind of this unknown, but unknown, unbeknownst to her, she's a Jedi. Okay, so she's gonna learn this, and then by the end of these movies, she is going to feel strong enough in her connection to the Force and the Skywalker family to call herself a Skywalker. Whether that's because her dad is Luke or her mom is Leia, or she gets this weird kind of pseudo adoption thing at the end, you gotta give that to me in a way I'm gonna find it believable.
yeah. You
And that's the problem.
just because you are like space Jesus in the way, not like chosen one type of thing like Anakin, but as far as power and the fact that you just basically you handled everything on your own and you barely needed help from anybody else. It's like, yeah, it doesn't
I
make you a Skywalker there, sweetie.
But
Sorry,
and this
but
is the problem is I think at the end of the movies, the whole goal was Skywalker to be not the name of this powerful force wielding family, but to be a family. And the whole point of
that's just
Rey's
not how it
character,
works, though.
but it's how, but like it could have. Rey's whole thing in the beginning is that she doesn't have a family. And all she wants in the first movie is to have a fucking family. And she kind of finds that with Han. And then she loses Han. She's got like Finn there, but whatever. That's where you start this tragedy of Rey trying to find people who can fill this for her. By the end of all of these, it is Leia. It is these people interacting with the Skywalker family, right? It is Han. It is Leia. It is Luke, who become these parental figures to her. And there is, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you make it that point. And you don't.
Yeah,
You don't devote enough time to Leia and her one on one, period. Like they just need to be having that kind of connection. Her and Luke, sure, have that contention in the beginning. That's fine. Luke hating the Jedi, when he argues it out, it makes a lot of sense because he's not wrong. Like the Jedi sucked by the end of the Clone Wars. That was the point. And then it's like you have to have them come back and you have to have them have a connection, whether he's a ghost or whether he's a person or whatever. All you get is kind of his like redemption arc through her, and then he does his thing. And the movie starts focusing less on the new characters and more on the old characters because they think that's what everybody wants to see. By the end of these movies, I need to feel like Rey is being treated like a daughter by Leia and Luke and Han and whatever. Because when she says proudly, I am Rey Skywalker, that should bring up an emotion in me where I go, you know what? She really is. Even though she's not maybe biologically their kid, like she might as well be. And that's what they were trying to go for. But because they didn't do these other things, it doesn't hit. And
they
you kind
messed
of
it up so bad though. Like they could have done it to where like she was a kid and got adopted, but no, it was like she's already an adult. Like you're
But
not
I think at
adopting
that
an
point,
adult.
but see, I think that's where you get you have to have the emotional element that these movies severely lacked was just
And
have
there's
her
no.
feel like, she was abandoned as a kid. That kind of thing doesn't go away just because you turn 18. So
She
like
like
you can
and
sit
she
there.
like they try to make the whole Han Solo death for her to be this huge emotional thing. It's like you didn't even fucking know him. You knew him for half a day maybe.
And that's where I was saying the angle needs to be taken more in the emotional way, because that right there is, for her, it should be emotional, because by that point, when he dies, we should, as the viewer, really be looking at it as she views Han Solo as her dad. Like, that's how she views him. And the unfortunate thing is we have Kylo Ren just kind of telling you to the screen, "Oh, you think he's your dad," and it's like, okay, I get it. But like, I don't get that from her
Yeah,
because
I
the
ain't
movie
buying any of
doesn't.
it.
But it's not that I'm not buying it. I can buy it. It's that they're not doing anything on their part to have Ray as a character show me that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're not able to execute it. They're not executing
Right.
it. Therefore, I'm not buying it because you can't show me and make that known that yeah, there's actually a relationship there. As far as I'm
And
concerned, she was just tagging along for the hell of it to get out of the planet. And if you look at that movie and actually think she has some sort of emotional connection, no, like
and that's the problem,
there's
is it's
nothing
like,
there. So none of these characters, there's no emotional ties to any of them.
hmm,
I don't know why some people are going to be emotionally connected to it because I don't see any of it. You see the emotion when Obi-Wan loses Qui-Gon. You see the
mhm.
emotion when Anakin loses his mom. You see the emotion when he loses Padme, even
But
though it was a little corny.
it's not
But
the
like
loss. That's the thing, is that's where these movies get it wrong, because you see the loss when
she
Han's dead.
faces
You
no
see her.
she faces no adversity.
Well, it's not just that. It's that the problem I have with the connections between the characters is that everything is put on those moments that you described. So imagine an entire movie where Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are just kind of like putting around. Like, Obi-Wan's just following Qui-Gon and they're not really doing anything. And then Qui-Gon dies and Obi-Wan yells no, and it's like horrible, right? But you don't feel anything because, as far as you're concerned, Obi-Wan is just following Qui-Gon around. He doesn't give a shit, doesn't feel like being there, or at the very least, there's no connection. What you see in these movies, that in all the sequences you describe, you see over the course of the movie how those people are connected. You can see Qui-Gon's mannerisms in Obi-Wan. You see the mentor-mentee kind of dynamic. With Padme and Anakin, it's not the best romance ever, but it's at least
Nah.
built up into, I mean, it's there. And for whatever it's worth, it's there. They show it to you.
Yeah,
They
they
show you
shouldn't
face
it
these
shouldn't
problems.
have it shouldn't have been built up as much. They shouldn't have focused on it as much. But it
But
was
see, the thing
fine.
is
But you
they
got to
do
actually
it.
see like they legitimately like love each other. But
Right.
they
And
just
that's where,
because of their individual circumstances, they can't really show that publicly.
right, you get the
So it's
Romeo and
hard.
Juliet thing. And but it makes the scene when he's, well, words and script aside, when he's force choking her on Mustafar, it makes it that much more important, because that is where he falls. He's taking the one thing in the galaxy, arguably, that he loves more than anything else. The whole reason he becomes evil is
Yeah.
her, and he's killing her. And that's where you get that hit. With
Yeah.
Rey and Han, you really like you can see Han kind of starting to be like treating Rey like when he offers her to stay on the ship. And it's like this, that's, I loved that interplay between Harrison Ford and Daisy Ridley because they worked so well with each other. It was just like this, hey, I'm thinking maybe you could hang out with me and Chewie, it'd be maybe cool. Like he's getting vulnerable, which he's not done. That's not really what Han's known for, right? And then she gets super excited, and he's just suddenly, like, he reacts. He's like, "No, you're not. I wouldn't treat you nice. I'd treat you like shit. You're terrible, blah, blah, blah." And she's just like, "You know what? I can't, because I have to get back to my family." And that scene, everything said in that scene and that happens, is what your series needs to be. Rey, a character that wants to find a family. She's waiting for her family to come back, even though it's absurd. You watch this, and everyone watching is like, your family's not coming back, and you know it. And that's the point. Is she is so like, I really want to have a family. I'm waiting for mine to come home. It's been years. And then, it's to the point where everyone's like, are you fucking kidding me? It's so absurd, and everyone's pointing this out, but she is like, no, I want this family because I've been so alone and it sucks. And she can't admit that to herself, because then that means everything in her life is horrible. And if she does that, you'd likely go nuts if you suddenly just woke up one day and was like, my entire life is terrible. This sucks. At the same time, you have all this past stuff that I think honestly the level they touch on it with Han and Leia and everybody, that's fine. I don't need to have a dive into all that. But you have her being able to take Han Solo, a guy who lost his son, who was also a force sensitive individual, to this horrible thing, who ran away from his life, get emotionally vulnerable and open up to this person who he's starting to relate to, he's starting to see as a kid. And then he dies, and it hits Ray as her screaming. And the thing is, you only get one scene of this, one scene of that interaction on an emotional level, to where when she's screaming, it doesn't hit as hard as Anakin choking Padme or Qui-Gon dying. Like it
Or
should.
Anakin
It's
losing his
supposed to.
mom,
Or
just like
Anakin losing his mom. Perfect.
just crying, carrying her around the village,
And I think
carrying her on the speeder bike.
I think that's the thing is like Anakin and the mom is perfect. It's a perfect parallel of what needed to happen here is you have Anakin, for all intents and purposes, as a quote unquote slave, his life is pretty okay, right? He's got a mom that cares about him. She takes care of him. She, is treating him like a loving mother, despite the weird reason for having this kid. Fine. That's fine. But it builds up this connection and it builds up a reason for him to do these things. Whereas in The Force Awakens, you have that one scene with her and Han, which is, in my opinion, probably like one of the better scenes in the movie because it is the movie. It's what it's supposed to be about. But you don't do it ever again. And it becomes like the other movies where you're just running around and now Han Solo's kind of just becoming a vehicle. He's no more a character than the Millennium Falcon by the end of it. And I think you need that dynamic in your characters to build it because what needs to happen next is Leia needs to be there for Rey to be sort of next up, for lack of a better term, next up on the chopping block. Like she needs to be there because Rey needs to experience this loss so that by the end of these movies, when you get the Palpatine saying, I am your grandfather, I am your family, I'm the one thing that actually exists anymore that is the family you always wanted, but I'm the most evil zombified son of a bitch in the galaxy. So look at me. I am who you are. She's now confronted with like, I can either do what I wanted and take my family and be evil, or I can just say, fuck this and be part of the family that, chose to have me, a la the Skywalkers. This movie tried to go and it doesn't do it.
I mean, we had these opportunities presented, and I mean, shit. Before the movie was even like released, they could have went this route. They had the opportunity, but they didn't do it, and they chose the fact that they chose not to. It's like, what are we writing? What are we making?
You're making a
spectacle. What is the end game here? What are you guys trying to do? And even with what they gave you, you're still like, wait, what the fuck are they trying to do? And that was very confusing for a lot of people.
I think it's because it's like the Marvel movies. You want to make something flashy that you can watch, when in reality, the movie you made is Rey's emotional journey to find a family and having to come to terms ultimately with the fact that the family that she thought she wanted is actually the worst option for everyone in the galaxy. But that doesn't sell tickets. That's not flashy. Watching this, girl's emotional journey might be cinematically good, but it's not the shoot 'em up, blasting, blowing up Star Wars that people want. So you have to like really bury it under tons and tons of garbage. And that's the problem is you bury the plot. You bury what your movie actually is under all these layers of like what would be a cool thing to see in Star Wars. And it's like, who gives a shit? I mean, it's already there. They already fly spaceships. They already shoot lasers. You can have her do that stuff. Just like maybe this is me getting more of like what I would have rather seen because I've, grown up with 6 other movies and TV shows and some other people haven't. But it's like, I kind of wouldn't have mind watching Rey's journey emotionally from abandoned child who's in denial of like their family returning to finding a family, to having to choose, to ultimately saying, I'm Rey Skywalker because they're the people that ended up being my family, all along. and they chose to be a part of that, as opposed to this dude who basically wanted to take over my body and therefore the galaxy. But it's like, you don't get that. You just get, this is the magical, mystical crap that makes this happen. This is the shoot 'em up, blowing up explosion shit that's going to happen in between. And there's no through line. And the through line needed to be Rey, and it wasn't. And it feels almost like it was written that way at some point, and then they cut stuff, because it's like, when I put it like that one scene still does happen, between Rey and Han. So where's the rest of it? Like, that would stand to reason there should have been like other stuff at least written that filled that in a little bit better, but it's not there. And probably because they were like, no one wants to see people talking. Blow
Yeah,
up the building.
and these are the reasons why, this is the reason why people hate this movie. And it's because of those exact reasons. And people bitched about all the talking and dialogue, even though the dialogue wasn't amazing. But
Dude, but it's
that's
so
why
much
people.
awesome shit gets said in the prequels. Like, oh
That's
my
what I'm
god,
saying. That's what I'm
it's
saying. And it's like
such a
people
political
argue about
thriller.
that. People complained about that, but it's like, well, you're gonna sacrifice good storytelling for special effects. Got it. But
Well, it's not
I
even,
think,
it's the whole, like, how we say, like, oh, 8 did this and it was terrible, and then 9 was just as
yeah.
terrible for doing the opposite of 8. It's the same thing. The sequels were bad because the bad things in the prequels were avoided so hard, you went full circle and did the opposite of what was bad.
But
So it's
here they just avoided everything, and
right.
you're just like, no, that's not how it works. But I think on a final point, real
Yeah.
quick, I think is a good time.
Yeah,
We're
three and a
going
half
on,
hours is probably a solid
yeah.
amount of time.
But I think overall, I think the conversation today has been, just because it says Star Wars, just because it says any really franchise name, doesn't mean you have to follow it wholeheartedly. Doesn't mean you have to like worship it. I
Yeah.
mean, you shouldn't have to worship anything. But just be aware when shit
It's
hits the
okay
fan.
to not like something that is Star Wars or
Shit,
Marvel or whatever.
shit hits the fan. You got to know that it's there. You can't
Right.
just pass it over as, well, the name.
Mhm.
Well, I've always liked. Just because you've always liked it doesn't mean it's good.
And it doesn't nullify you liking the other
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Like,
and you
I
can
don't
like the
like
other
Iron
stuff that
Man
you like.
3, but I like Iron Man 1,
Oh yeah, me too.
right?
Oh yeah,
Like, I don't have to hate it because the third one sucked. Like,
and Iron Man 2 didn't age well.
did it not? I haven't watched Iron Man movies in forever.
I watched it recent. I don't know, maybe a month ago.
That's kinda
Not.
sad that the Marvel movies don't age well.
I think it's Iron Man 1 definitely ages well, but I think Iron Man 2, besides a couple scenes, I
Mhm.
just don't. I don't know. I like the Black Widow in it, but besides Black Widow, seeing him and Rhodey fight
Mm.
and a couple other scenes, it's not like my favorite. It's not really even close. But
No, I don't. No.
Iron Man 1 kicks ass, and then 3 sucks balls, so whatever. But
Well, it's 'cause
no,
3
I
is
mean,
just, like, doesn't do anything.
it's an ongoing theme. It's the first one's
Yeah.
great, the other ones suck. So,
Yeah, and I think the thing I'll
well,
add to
Force
your
Awakens
point,
wasn't great, but you know what I
but
mean.
yeah.
It
But
sets
I
a
think the
tone.
thing I wanna add to your point about, like, just because it has a stamp of a franchise doesn't mean it has to be good, is that if you're making a movie, just because you're, and I mean, I know that this is a lot of Disney dabbling and interfering and stuff, but, like, just because you're making a movie that is a Star Wars movie or is a Marvel movie, that doesn't mean, like, you have to make it the same as all the other ones, I guess. Like, you if you're making a movie, like, you're telling a story. That's the point. If you're not really able to tell that story, what's the point of the movie happening? It's like writing a book that's just, you know, describing a setting. It's just, oh, the green field was green and it had this many blades of grass, blah, 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 blah. And then one day a flower grew and that's it. This isn't going anywhere. It's just a field. Um, but it's like, you can make, like, I don't know, I guess maybe that's just because I'm bored with some of these things and I want to see something unique in these universes because I am a fan. So, like, Mandalorian's unique and I like it because it's like, it's Star Wars. I like Star Wars, but it's also like intriguing because it's different Star Wars and it's not different like we're shitting on Star Wars. It's different, like, it's just telling something, a story that could happen that I've never seen. So yeah, I mean, if you're making a movie, I guess just don't be afraid to make something different. Then again, maybe Disney will kick you out the door like they have with some of these directors and slander your name or whatever. I don't know, but I guess just don't be afraid to make something different because it seems to be accepted really well. I mean, look at some of these movies that went to the Oscars. Like, I remember seeing like Parasite. That movie was amazing. It is not a movie I would have expected to be made. Like it's that kind of stuff. Make something different. And hell, if you can make it a Star Wars movie and make it different, to me, that's just adding points if you do it well.
Yeah, I mean, don't be afraid to make your own stuff, but don't be a dumbass.
Mhm. Yeah.
Don't be a Ryan Johnson or a J.J. Abrams. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, make something unique. Don't just, I don't know. If someone's gonna sit there and tell you like, your movie stinks, I don't want to be like that. We're gonna fire you unless you play ball. Like, I don't know. You got to do what you got to do with a career. But if you're kind of well off, make your own movie somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think we'll end there.
Yeah.
It's been a good episode. I think it's been what 3.5 hours, man. It's gone by quick.
No, I've never got to articulate my this is the way the Star Wars movie should have gone with
Yeah, we're gonna
emotional
cover that.
connecting.
I think next, if you want, we can do a show next week.
Yep.
I think we can cover the points that we didn't, get the chance to make today. Today has just been us venting on the Star Wars movies, so which is good. We needed to do this. We needed
Yeah,
to
evidently.
really just establish, like, hey, this is all bullshit. This is
The
how
thing
we
that
stand.
stinks, it just sucks because it's like, yeah, I would love it if I could make this movie that I described, but it's never going to happen and just kind of gets depressing after that.
It's sad because we've always wondered, hey, like, we know what the EU is, but what's the movie going to be? Like, what's that one going to be about?
Right. You want to
Is
see
there
it.
going to be one? And then we get this.
Oh, and that's another thing too, is it's just like, you got to keep them expectations reasonable when it comes to things like that.
Well, now
Oh
you
my
do.
God. I mean, but I mean, this is a great example, right? It's like, oh my God, we're gonna make a movie about whatever, this thing or the other thing. It's like, I read that book, it was so good, or I read that comic, it was so good, or whatever. And it's just like, okay, but like you liked that for what it was there. This might not be that way.
Yeah, just the way you see movies being made now and people taking adaptations and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your expectations somewhat low,
Yeah, I mean,
but
I noticed that when I start doing that, I
don't keep
actually
them.
start enjoying these movies a lot more. Like,
Yeah, you don't have to keep them
yeah.
like low, but just be aware what
Mm-hmm.
happens. But um, but guys, thanks for listening in. I want to thank FlareX for hanging out with us in the chat. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, appreciate you
You've
catching stuff
been
for me.
hanging out with us, and that's awesome, man. Thank you. But anybody else that tuned in or listened any other time today, thank you very much. And if you listen to this here on the replay, just make sure you subscribe to Goober Brothers Entertainment, and we'll be doing more of this later on. And also go ahead and check out So What Happens Next over there on Spotify, on Anchor, on iTunes, Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, wherever you get your podcasts, check us out. If you like movies, you like listening to maybe some of my ideas, or you want to hear other people's ideas about how movies should have gone, could have gone, might go, check us out. It's a lot of first impression stuff. So we're not necessarily doing stuff like Star Wars, but maybe some movies you guys see are something we do. I think the next episode's coming out is Candyman from 1991.
Oh,
So
cool.
that might be one if people are interested in. It's the first time I saw it. So yeah, like,
When you got the remake coming out,
yeah,
so
we didn't even actually know that the remake was coming out till we did the episode, and we were like, "Oh shit, they're remaking this movie." So that was kind of fun. So I guess it makes it a little bit more relevant. But
that's gonna be cool for you guys.
no, it's definitely a fun episode. I mean, it's a fun movie. There's a lot of cool stuff about it, and there's also a lot of cool stuff happens in it. So yeah, if you want on Sunday night that'll be dropping, so you can check that one out. And then there's also another 18 episodes if you want to listen to anything else.
Well, yeah, guys, go check them out. Go check out So What Happens Next with Thomas and his wife Amber. So if you guys are searching the web, searching Spotify or anything, go check them out, man.
Yeah, are you
So
bored in quarantine? You just want to listen to something, Go
do
ahead,
it.
check that out. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. Um, Catch up with us next week, and I'll be back on here doing another show. Um, and we'll talk with Thomas, and we'll see
Yeah.
what happens next.
So, cool. Say everybody later.
Aha.
Oh, you said it.
All right, y'all take care. Be safe out there. Wash your damn hands.
Stay inside.